Imagine yourself waking to a soft, gray morning, the light filtered through curtains, shaping the room in gentle shadows. You feel the world is as it appears, familiar, safe, and whole. Yet what you see is not reality itself, but a careful selection. Your mind quietly acts as a filter, allowing in what is safe, soothing, or necessary, while leaving the rest in darkness. In daily life, this filter shapes every moment. A stonecutter at dawn, chipping at rock, becomes so focused on the weight and sound of his hammer that the birdsong and passing footsteps barely register. The market woman hears only the voices of customers who approach, the colors of her apples standing out sharply, while the rest of the crowd fades to background shapes. This is not a flaw, but a gentle strategy, a way for the brain to keep you steady and safe, guiding you through each day without overwhelm. Even history's grand halls and crowded streets were shaped by this quiet bias. A noble at a feast, distracted by flickering candlelight and whispered intrigue, does not see every detail: the cool air by the window, the worn cracks in the floor, the subtle anxieties on distant faces, each unnoticed element quietly edited away. The brain always chooses what matters for the moment, what must be seen or heard to carry on. So much of what you know, what you call true, is simply what is allowed past this ancient filter. It is comforting, sometimes limiting, but always working silently to keep you balanced within your world. A gentle reminder that reality, for each of us, is always just what's safe enough to notice. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a crowded market, the early light filtering through the gaps in canvas stalls. The voices of merchants blend with the gentle shuffle of footsteps on worn cobblestones, and all around you, the ordinary rhythm of life carries on, unhurried, unremarkable. You feel the brush of fabric as someone passes close by, and for a moment, you become acutely aware of a smudge on your sleeve or the way your voice cracked when you last spoke. In that instant, it feels as if a silent audience has turned its gaze, as if the world's attention has narrowed to this tiny imperfection. But the truth is softer, almost invisible. Each person in that crowd carries their own quiet spotlight, illuminating not the world, but themselves. The merchant worries over the neatness of his display, a child frets about the crumbs on her cheek, and the elderly woman at the baker's stall recalls the words she fumbled that morning. Their minds are full, preoccupied, rarely lingering on your small missteps. In this city, whether ancient or modern, reputations are thought to be fragile, but most memories are gentle and brief. A slip, a mispronounced word, the mismatched buttons on a coat, these moments dissolve into the flow of daily routines. The fear of being noticed, judged, or remembered too sharply is itself a private experience, an echo of the spotlight illusion. What seems blindingly obvious to you is scarcely visible to others, lost among the 1,000 tiny dramas unfolding in their own minds. And as the afternoon stretches on, the market's hum remains steady, indifferent to individual anxieties. The shame you feel is often invisible, and the world, in its quiet way, continues undisturbed. Imagine yourself wandering a quiet village street day after day. Each morning, you pass the same crooked sign above the bakery, its paint gently peeling from the years. At first, you notice its flaws, the faded letters, the way it tilts slightly to the left. But as the days drift on, these details soften and blur. The sign becomes part of the background, something you trust simply because it's always there. There's comfort in its regularity, a sense of safety that comes from the familiar. Over time, you rarely question it. The bakery, the smell of bread, the warmth of the window glass, these details repeat themselves, and so you accept them, almost without thought. Historians call this the illusion of truth, when repetition alone begins to feel like evidence. Imagine a town crier who announces the same decree every week. It might be half true or even false, but soon the steady rhythm of his words is what lingers in people's minds. Repetition creates a fog. It settles over facts and fiction alike, dulling the urge to question. In ancient markets, merchants would display goods in the same places, with the same gestures and greetings. For locals, the repetition reassured, This is how things are, how they've always been. Sometimes, what is familiar is mistaken for what is true. The pattern becomes the proof. In grand halls, nobles told stories of their family's honor, tales polished and repeated over centuries. The story's edges might have worn smooth, details lost or invented, but the retelling itself became a kind of truth. It is easy, in such a world, for falsehoods to take root, not because people are careless, but because the mind prefers the safety of what it knows. So, as you drift, consider how the rhythm of repetition shapes not just history, but memory itself. The fog of familiarity comforts, even as it quietly changes what you believe. Imagine yourself walking through a familiar room in the dimness of early morning. The furniture never moves, the floorboards creak in expected places, and you step with quiet confidence, trusting that nothing important has changed since yesterday. There is a kind of comfort in what you don't see, an unspoken trust in the unseen corners and the spaces just out of reach. What we never notice rarely troubles us. Most people spend their days with these invisible boundaries gently shaping their world, quietly ruling what can be questioned and what simply isn't. History is scattered with blind spots that shaped entire civilizations. Consider the ancient mapmakers who left vast regions blank, not out of ignorance, but because their world was complete without them. "Here be dragons," they sometimes wrote, filling emptiness with imagined dangers. Yet for those who lived by those maps, the real peril was not the dragon, but the edge itself, a place they'd never think to look, or a truth no one dared to chart. In daily medieval life, a farmer rising before dawn never wondered about the stars beyond his village. His routines, passed down through generations, taught him which shadows meant rain and which noises foretold a good harvest. His blind spots kept him safe, wrapped in the rhythm of predictable days. The nobles, too, built their routines atop invisible rules. They never questioned the servants who vanished quietly or the decisions made behind closed doors. What was out of sight was simply not their concern. The comfort of these unseen beliefs lingers today. We rarely notice the limits of our own knowledge. The most dangerous ideas are often the ones we never recognize as ideas at all. They're the water in which we swim. By gently asking what we've never thought to question, we begin to see the edges of our own maps, and perhaps find a little wisdom waiting just beyond the blind spot. Imagine yourself in a narrow passage, the world softly dimmed on either side. This is not a place of physical danger, just the gentle, invisible shift that happens in the mind when stress begins to rise. Throughout history, people have experienced this peculiar shrinking of the world, where possibility fades and only the most immediate concerns remain. In the bustling markets of medieval towns, a merchant under pressure to make a day's profit might notice only the frowns of potential customers, never their curiosity. In the quiet dimness of an ancient scriptorium, a monk, anxious about an approaching deadline, might see only the smudge on his parchment, not the careful lines he's already written. The tunnel vision lock is subtle. Stress does not announce itself with a shout, but with a slow closing of mental doors. The horizon grows smaller. In a cramped village home, a parent listening for storms outside might overlook the gentle laughter in the next room, their senses searching only for threats. Even the grand halls of the elite, thick with the scent of polished wood and candle wax, hold stories of rulers who, fearing betrayal, saw danger in every shadow, missing the soft loyalty of those nearby. This narrowing isn't simply a flaw, but an ancient protection. When food was scarce and dangers real, focusing tightly on threats could mean survival. Yet, as you listen now, the rhythm of your own breathing steady and slow, you might notice how rarely those dangers match our modern lives. Still, the old patterns return. When deadlines loom or criticism stings, you may find your attention slipping into that same narrow corridor, searching for threats, missing gentle possibilities. But every tunnel, even a tunnel of the mind, has an exit. Sometimes it's found in the soft hush of early morning, when the world is still, or in the comforting repetition of a daily ritual. The tunnel vision lock loosens with time, with calm, and with gentle curiosity about what lies just beyond your immediate focus. A reminder that the world is wider, softer, and stranger than stress allows you to see. Imagine yourself lying on your back, watching clouds drift slowly across a pale afternoon sky. Shapes appear and dissolve. A horse, a ship, a familiar face. Your mind quietly eager to find order in formlessness. This is not just a quiet pastime, but a subtle feature of your brain, the unending craving for patterns. Even in the hush of daily life, your mind is quietly stitching meaning from the fabric of chance. Consider a merchant in a bustling ancient market. She sees customers come in threes and believes the day will be prosperous, simply because she notices a sequence. Or the child who counts sparrows on a fence, feeling as though the number must mean something, though he cannot say what. The pattern-craving glitch is gentle, persistent, turning stray sounds into music, scattered stones into symbols, coincidences into signs. The rhythm of daily life feels safer, more predictable, when meaning is gently woven through it. In grand halls, powerful figures once believed that falling comets or strange dreams foretold events. They watched the turning of the seasons, traced the stars, and marked omens in small things. Even now, you may pause at repeating numbers, sense a message in a random phrase, or find comfort in a routine. Your mind, ever searching, assigns meaning long before truth is confirmed. The world remains filled with chance and uncertainty, but your brain offers the steady comfort of patterns. As you listen, let yourself notice how this gentle glitch shapes every day. A quiet reminder that what feels significant is often just the mind's way of making sense of the world, weaving order into the endless drift of experience. Imagine yourself wandering through a sunlit square, where a group of townsfolk gather around a board announcing tomorrow's market. The air is thick with the aroma of fresh bread and the sound of soft conversation. As you pause, you overhear a simple question asked. Two ways. One merchant wonders aloud, "Will you risk losing half your earnings if you wait?" While another asks, "Would you like a chance to double your profit if you're patient?" Both refer to the same uncertain bargain, yet you notice how heads nod at one question and shake at the other. A single choice, split by the shape of its frame. This is the quiet power of the frame trap bias. In every village, in every era, people believe they're making decisions with free will, weighing pros and cons. But most choices drift gently along a path set by the words that introduce them. The way a question is phrased becomes a narrow doorway, guiding thought before you ever step through. Even in the simplest moments, accepting an offer, agreeing to a request, the setup steers the mind, quietly narrowing the field of possible answers. Imagine the rhythm of life in a place where rulers, merchants, and neighbors all ask for favors or bargains. The language they choose, urgent or inviting, bright with promise or heavy with risk, becomes the frame that shapes belief. You are not as free as you feel. You are reacting to the gentle pressure of presentation, the subtle architecture of the question itself. And so, in the hush of evening, as the day's choices fade into memory, the truth lingers. Your beliefs and actions are often responses to invisible prompts. The frame is set long before you speak, and what feels like freedom is often just a graceful reaction to a carefully built stage. Imagine yourself seated at a worn wooden table, the gentle clink of cups and soft murmur of voices filling the room. Light falls in quiet patches across the floor. You gaze around, noticing the shapes and shadows, the subtle drift of dust in the morning air. But for all that you see, there's more slipping past, just outside the narrow focus of your attention. Perhaps the salt jar beside your hand, unchanged for weeks, remains almost invisible to you. Its presence is so ordinary, so constant, that it blends into the scenery. The mind, like a careful editor, decides what enters the frame and what is left out. There's a story from the archives of city guards, watchmen standing at the same gate each day, eyes scanning the crowds for anything out of place. Yet even they, trained and attentive, often missed the man who walked by carrying a bright red parcel. He passed unnoticed, not because he was hidden, but because he was simply unexpected. Inattentional invisibility, when the mind, overwhelmed by choices and details, quietly erases the things it does not expect or value. In medieval kitchens, the same hands might set the table each evening, placing the same cup in the same spot. After a time, even a chipped rim or new crack escapes notice. The familiar becomes unseen, not through neglect, but because attention has already wandered elsewhere. The world is always larger than your awareness of it, quietly edited down to what feels important, while the rest falls away. So, as you sit within this gentle haze of routine, notice how your focus moves, how easily it leaves things out. The world does not shrink, but your mind, always curating, decides what to bring close and what to let drift into the soft invisibility just beyond your gaze. In this quiet editing, whole stories can slip by, unseen yet present all along. Imagine yourself in a quiet village where the days unfold with the slow certainty of tradition. No one questions why the baker rises before dawn or why the village bell tolls at sunset. The unspoken rules are everywhere, woven into the sound of bread being kneaded, the pattern of footsteps on the dusty road, the silence between neighbors as they pass. You follow these rhythms not because you were told to, but because nobody ever suggested another way. This is the comfort of silent assumptions, lessons absorbed without words, shaping what you do, and more deeply, what you never even consider. History is a long story of things never questioned. Think of how entire societies moved in step, certain the sun revolved around the earth or that illness crept in on a night breeze. No council declared these truths. No one whispered doubt. Silence gave these beliefs strength. In ancient Rome, people arranged their lives around omens and portents. Rarely did anyone ask why, because tradition had spoken through silence, and to question was almost unthinkable. You can feel this in daily routines. A young apprentice in a medieval workshop mimics the master's every move, never pausing to ask why the tools are arranged in a particular way. Even in grand halls, nobles adopt gestures and phrases simply because that's how it's always been done. The true teacher is often not the elder's voice, but the absence of explanation. Over time, this silence becomes a gentle gravity, drawing everyone into its orbit. Even now, the most persistent beliefs are those left unchallenged. The silent lessons, what is normal, what is possible, guide choices quietly from the background. The world may seem calm and certain, but listen carefully, and you might sense the hush where a question should be. Sometimes, to grow wiser, all you need is to notice the silence and gently wonder what's been left unsaid. Imagine yourself arriving in an unfamiliar town at dusk, the light low and gentle, your senses alert. The first thing you notice, a quiet bell, a chill in the air, a stranger's passing glance, settles in your mind, subtle but persistent. This first impression becomes an anchor, a quiet weight at the bottom of your thoughts. Every detail that follows seems to gather around it, drawn in by an invisible gravity. Throughout history, anchoring has quietly shaped the way people judge and decide. In a medieval market, the first price called out by a vendor lingers, coloring every bargain or offer that follows. In the hush of a scholar's library, the first line of a scroll sets the tone for how every page is read. Even in the routines of daily life, the first word spoken at breakfast, the look a neighbor gives on the street, these anchors gently guide expectations and feelings, often without notice. The anchoring distortion is rarely forceful. It's the soft hand that steers a conversation, the subtle flavor that lingers in every sip after a meal's first taste. Imagine a craftsman judging a piece of wood by the grain he first sees, or a judge in a stone courtroom swayed by the first argument of the day. Even the stories told in the warmth of a fire-lit room are shaped by the opening words, a single phrase setting the boundaries of the tale to come. Anchoring is not a flaw, but a feature of how minds navigate an uncertain world. It brings a sense of order to chaos, a point of reference in shifting sands. But as you rest, notice how many of your judgments, your first impressions, were quiet anchors cast long ago. Sometimes, simply recognizing them can soften their hold, allowing your mind to drift beyond the familiar weights and into a wider, quieter world, where each new moment arrives untethered, gentle, and open to possibility. Imagine yourself standing in a room lit only by a single candle. Shadows gather softly in the corners, while every object, table, book, window frame, seems defined not by what it is, but by where one surface ends and another begins. Your eyes scan the room, and quietly, your mind traces every edge. The world feels solid and distinct, shapes separated by neat outlines. But what you're truly seeing is not the objects themselves, but a delicate illusion of contrast. All through history, people have trusted what they see. A potter shapes clay by the edge of his wheel. A scholar turns pages by lamplight, each certain of the forms before them. Yet the mind is always at work, creating boundaries where perhaps none truly exist. The edge between shadow and light becomes a border, and your brain, searching for order, completes the shape, even when details are missing or blurred by darkness. Outdoors, the same pattern holds. A line of trees against a cloudy sky becomes a pattern of crisp silhouettes. Distant hills blur into a single band of color, but your brain insists on a clear horizon. Even the face of a friend, lit by firelight or fading sun, is assembled from flickers of contrast, your mind drawing boundaries, highlighting changes, and gently ignoring what lies in between. This quiet habit helps you navigate the world, giving comfort and clarity, even as much of what you see is softly hallucinated by your own mind. Each edge feels real, but the truth is more subtle. You live in a world of gentle inventions, every shape a quiet agreement between light, shadow, and the tireless work of perception. Imagine yourself in a quiet room where a clock ticks with steady patience against the far wall. At first, its sound is sharp, each tick marking the slow passage of time. The scent of old paper lingers in the air, and a faint draft brushes your skin from a window cracked open. Yet, as the minutes slip by, the details fade from your mind. The ticking recedes into the background, the draft is forgotten, and even the golden light filtering through the curtains loses its novelty. What was once vivid becomes invisible, blending seamlessly into the fabric of your experience. This is the fading awareness effect, a gentle erosion of attention that touches every life. The brain, in its quiet efficiency, filters what remains unchanged. It frees your thoughts to notice what is new, what might signal danger or opportunity. A familiar face at the table, the hum of the same lamp each evening, the soft presence of a loyal companion, all grow quiet in your mind, their constancy mistaken for silence. In the rhythm of daily life, you walk the same paths, pass the same faces, and rarely pause to see what endures. The stone steps worn smooth by generations, the tree at the corner that has weathered 100 storms. These fixtures shape your world, yet slip from awareness. Only when something is lost or suddenly changed does its absence resurface, and you remember what you had overlooked. As dusk settles and the clock continues its measured song, consider what remains steady around you. The familiar and loyal often fade from view, not from lack of value, but from the gentle blindness that routine brings. In the hush of the evening, let your mind rest on what is constant, those quiet presences that form the backdrop of your days, waiting patiently to be seen anew. Imagine yourself listening to rain on the roof, each drop marking out the minutes. In moments of stillness, time stretches. The world slows and you notice the steady rhythm of your breath, the quiet creak of floorboards. But when excitement stirs or worry quickens your pulse, those same minutes seem to rush past, slipping through your awareness before you can grasp them. Life is not counted in even blocks, but in the texture of moods that color each passing second. There are stories of workers in distant fields, their days governed by the swing of a scythe or the slow journey of the sun. For some, the hours pass gently, soft and languid, each moment easy to notice. Yet, on festival days or in times of fear, the hours twist and blur. A summer feast might vanish in a flash of laughter, while a night spent waiting for news can seem endless. Time bends, stretching thin or folding tight, depending not on the clock, but on the feeling that fills each moment. Even the great halls of history reflect this truth. Monarchs and merchants, caught in urgent matters, might remember years as little more than a swirl of meetings and faces, whole seasons reduced to a memory of urgency. Meanwhile, a child waiting for dawn, heart thumping with hope, feels every minute draw out like a slow tide. You do not live by the hourglass, but by a patchwork of emotions, each one tinting your sense of how long things last. Time, ever slippery, is shaped by how you feel. Tense hours dissolve, joyful minutes escape, and the dullness of routine can stretch a day into forever. As you let your mind drift, notice how memory selects and colors time, painting the past with shades of longing or relief, leaving you with the gentle illusion that time has slipped, one way or another, through your hands. Imagine yourself tracing your fingers across a wooden table in a quiet, lamp-lit room. The surface feels smooth, but your mind fills in details. Warmth, slight ridges, the echo of dozens of tables you've touched before. Your sense of touch is never just about the present moment. Each texture, each gentle bump or groove is shaped by a lifetime of memories. You know the difference between silk and wool, not because your skin measures every fiber, but because memory whispers the answer before you finish reaching. In daily life, you rarely notice how much your hands rely on what's come before. A baker kneads dough, feeling its readiness long before the recipe says so, guided by the ghosts of countless loaves past. A tailor, eyes closed, can tell good cloth from bad with a brush of the palm. Familiarity more powerful than sight. In these moments, touch and memory blend so seamlessly that the present is colored by everything that came before. Across cultures and history, the importance of touch lingers quietly. Medieval stone carvers could tell the quality of a chisel's edge by the vibration in their fingertips, a sensation recalled from years of practice. In a crowded market, a potter selects clay by feel alone, trusting not the look, but the remembered heft and softness in the hand. The rhythm of daily life is built from these quiet loops, where present sensation is always filtered through layers of memory. Yet this loop has its own quiet mystery. Sometimes, what feels real is nothing more than a well-rehearsed echo, the soft comfort of a blanket, the reassuring grip of a familiar tool. These are memories in disguise, gently tricking you into believing the world is just as you recall. The touch confusion loop is a quiet guide, reminding you that what you sense now is always shaped by what you've known before. Imagine yourself standing before an old, rippled mirror in the quiet corner of a candlelit room. The image looking back is familiar, but never quite whole. In truth, you've never seen yourself directly, not once. Your eyes cannot turn and gaze upon your own face. Your presence is always filtered through reflections, shadows, and the careful descriptions of others. The self you know is a mosaic of hints, an assembly of guesses and soft echoes from every surface you've ever used to check your hair, your expression, or the fit of your collar. Throughout history, people have sought their true likeness in pools of water, polished metal, or glass. In a medieval village, a young apprentice might pause at dawn to peer into a still bucket, the image shifting with every ripple. In the grand halls of the elite, gold-framed mirrors offered clarity, but only in reverse. Even the polished helmets of knights served as fleeting reminders, a flash of nose, eyes, the uncertain set of a jaw. Yet these were only glimpses, never the full truth. This mirror mind trick lingers in daily life, You gather fragments of your identity from casual remarks, from photographs that freeze you in unfamiliar gestures, from the way your voice sounds in a recording, odd and unclaimed. The image you hold is a gentle patchwork, a smile remembered from a friend's description, a stance copied from a sibling, a sense of self that changes as the light shifts. As you settle in, the rhythm of your breathing slow and steady. Consider how little of yourself is truly known. Even to you, the person you carry in your mind is shaped by reflections, always one step removed. There's a comfort in this gentle uncertainty. The self is not a fixed portrait, but a living collage, open to possibility, mystery, and the quiet beauty of never being fully captured, even in your own gaze. Imagine yourself sitting by a quiet window, watching the light shift across the floor as the afternoon drifts on. You recall a moment from long ago, a gathering, a voice, a certain scent of bread and rain. It seems vivid, whole, as if your mind had kept a perfect recording tucked safely away. But in truth, your memory is not a vault. It is a gentle painter, quietly reworking old canvases each time you look. Across daily life, this quiet error shapes the rhythm of remembering. A craftsman recalls the first tool he made, but the weight of it grows smoother in his mind, the room quieter, the faces kinder than they may have been. A traveler remembers a winding road, the way the air felt sharp and new. Yet with each retelling, details shift, colors change, edges soften. What remains is not the event itself, but a careful remix, pieced together from scattered impressions and later feelings. In grand halls or humble kitchens, families pass stories down. A childhood story grows brighter with each telling. An old loss becomes softer, wrapped in gentle memory. Over time, what is remembered becomes a blend of what was hoped for, and what comforts best in the retelling. So, as you drift through the rhythm of your thoughts, know that each memory is a living thing, reshaped by feeling and time. Your mind, ever adapting, offers comfort instead of accuracy. A gentle reminder that the past you carry is less a recording and more a carefully woven dream, painted anew each time you close your eyes. Imagine yourself walking through narrow village lanes at dusk, the air humming with distant voices and the soft ring of church bells. The pattern of footsteps on cobblestones and the gentle creak of a shutter drifting in the evening breeze form a quiet music around you. Yet, as you listen, you notice how the mind weaves its own tapestry, filling in the lulls between sounds, smoothing over what is lost in the hush. This is the subtle art of hallucinated sound completion. In the market square, a merchant's words fade behind a passing cart, yet you understand the message as if nothing was missed. At home, a familiar tune on the lute falters, and your mind carries the melody forward, supplying the missing notes as if the silence itself held music. Even in conversations, when a word is swallowed by laughter or the wind, you hear it anyway, your brain slipping the right syllable into place so seamlessly that you never notice the gap. In this constant quiet collaboration between sense and memory, you rarely experience true silence. Every environment is shaped by an invisible helper, a gentle ghost whispering sense into broken noise. The rhythm of daily life is full of such moments, a sentence that trails off, a door that almost latches, the distant echo of a name half spoken. Your mind is a skilled repairer, mending the world's soundscape with familiar patterns and anticipated endings. And so, as darkness settles and the village quiets, let yourself drift in the comfort of these gentle completions. You are never left with emptiness. What is missing becomes whole, the silences stitched together by the softest imagination. In this way, your world is never quite silent, always filled, always finished, by the hidden artistry of your listening mind. Imagine yourself walking a narrow path at dusk, the world touched by the cool blue of evening. The landscape is the same, but its meaning shifts with each feeling that moves through you. When anger flickers, the shadows seem sharper, voices more pointed. When joy bubbles up, the same road brightens, corners soften, and small sounds become music. Reality bends, subtly but surely, as emotion colors what you see and remember. Throughout history, this emotional lens has shaped events both great and ordinary. Picture a merchant at market, heart heavy with worry. The shuffle of coins and the haggling voices feel harsher. Trust slips easily away. On another day, buoyed by hope or love, he notices laughter and friendly faces where before he saw only suspicion. The facts, the weight of grain, the cost of bread remain the same, but their meaning drifts, sliding quietly to match the feeling within. Even in grand courts, where rulers seek reason, emotion sways decisions. Chronicles tell of moments when anger led to rash judgment or when compassion softened harsh decrees. The world, seen through the glass of feeling, becomes flexible. What once seemed certain can blur at the edges, facts gently reshaped by the mood that lingers in the air. As you let your thoughts wander, notice how feeling filters every scene, how the day's mood shifts what is clear and what is lost in haze. The emotion-tinted lens is always with you, sometimes brightening the world, sometimes casting it in shadow. Each memory, each moment, is quietly colored by what you feel, leaving reality just a little less fixed and a little more your own. Imagine yourself sitting in a quiet gathering, surrounded by people whose faces are calm, whose voices move in gentle agreement. You watch as one opinion becomes the thread that weaves everyone together. There's comfort in joining the chorus, in letting the group's certainty become your own. Most never notice when their views begin to shift. It happens softly, as if consensus itself was a kind of truth, a shelter from uncertainty. In these moments, the mind prefers harmony over the lonely work of questioning. History offers countless examples of how this silent force shapes reality. Think of the tulip craze in 17th century Holland, where entire cities believed a single flower bulb was worth a fortune. It wasn't reason that fed the frenzy, but the shared conviction of neighbors and friends. In medieval courts, rumors hardened into facts simply because enough people repeated them. When a belief becomes common, it becomes comfortable, and few pause to seek proof. The rhythm of daily life reinforces this. A merchant trusts a trade route because every colleague swears by it, never doubting the maps passed from hand to hand. In distant villages, healing herbs are chosen by tradition, the knowledge inherited from elders and echoed by peers. The consensus shapes not just belief, but memory itself. What you recall is colored by what those around you insist is true. This distortion still lingers. It's easier to agree than to stand alone, to adopt what everyone knows, than to seek out uncomfortable questions. The power of social consensus is subtle, wrapping reality in a gentle blanket of reassurance. Yet, beneath that surface, the truth may be waiting, unchanged by popular opinion. Sometimes, wisdom comes not from following the crowd, but from quietly wondering why everyone else agrees. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, hands resting on a wooden table worn smooth by years of gentle use. The line where your skin meets the world feels obvious, fingertips pressing against cool grain, breath curling just beyond parted lips. Yet this sense of boundary, of ending precisely where your skin does, is softer and less certain than it seems. The mind draws a border, but it is a shifting, living line. Throughout history, people have blurred the limits of body and environment, often without knowing. A blacksmith in a medieval forge, hammer in hand, soon feels the tool as an extension of his arm. With each practiced movement, the weight and length of iron become as familiar as muscle and bone. In the darkness of a candle-lit study, a scribe's quill flows from thought to hand to parchment in one continuous movement, the separation between writer and tool gently dissolving. Even a farmer leaning on a wooden staff at the edge of a field senses the world beyond through the vibrations in his palm, as if the land itself is felt through the staff. This boundary hallucination bias appears in quieter ways too. Wrapped in a thick cloak on a cold morning, you feel warmth as part of your own being. Walking barefoot on damp earth, the texture beneath your feet merges with your sense of self, the distinction between body and world gently blurred. The rhythm of daily life weaves these boundaries in and out, a soft dance between what is you and what is not. The mind, always seeking clarity, prefers sharp lines. But in practice, the edges are fuzzy. Tools become limbs, habits become extensions of thought, and the air you breathe feels for a moment like part of your body. As you settle into rest, let this comfort settle in as well. You are more than what you can see or touch. The world enters through senses, tools, and gentle contact, dissolving the borders, reminding you that being alive is always a collaboration between body, mind, and the space around you. Imagine yourself listening to a quiet conversation in a language you barely know. Words float past, soft sounds, unfamiliar shapes, while meaning slips quietly beyond your reach. You realize, in this hush, how much of the world is shaped by language. Without a word, a feeling or sight becomes hard to hold. Without a name, a shade of color or twist of emotion seems to vanish into the background. Your mind gently organizes reality using the words you know as tools and boundaries. All through history, this quiet effect has shaped daily life. A farmer may know 10 kinds of rain, each with a different name: soft drizzle, sharp downpour, mist so fine it hangs like breath, while another, in a different land, calls all rain by one word and moves on. In a crowded market, people trade words as much as goods, naming fruits, counting coins, describing wares. The world grows more detailed with each word learned, more limited with each one lost or left unspoken. A scholar studies rare texts by lamplight, finding new names for feelings he once sensed only as shadows. An artist sees colors in a sunset, yet without the right words, the memory fades. The hues dissolve into something hard to describe. Language gently weaves the outlines of every experience, designing the shape of thought, emotion, even memory itself. As you drift, notice how much your world depends on the words you carry. What you cannot name often stays invisible, hidden just out of reach. Language doesn't simply describe your life. It designs its very edges, offering comfort, meaning, and the limits of what you can ever truly know. Imagine yourself in a quiet chamber at night, where shadows drift across stone walls and the air is heavy with memory. A faint ache lingers in your hand, yet when you look down, you realize it's only a sensation. Your hand is still, untouched. This is the strange persistence of presence that lives within the mind, the phantom limb belief. Long after something is gone, the brain keeps reaching, mapping, feeling as if nothing has changed. In distant eras, soldiers returned from battle swearing they could still feel fingers that had vanished or an arm that no longer moved. They would speak of it softly, as if admitting to a haunting, not a wound. Their brains, stubborn in their routines, carried the shape of old selves as faithfully as the sound of a forgotten lullaby. The body adapts, but the mind lingers, filling empty space with echoes, sometimes with pain, sometimes just with the ghostly reminder of what once was. Consider the ordinary rhythms of life. A ring worn for years leaves a trace upon the skin, and even after it's slipped off, you still feel its gentle pressure. A house you've left behind returns in dreams, its doors opening to you as if you'd never departed. The mind, it seems, is reluctant to release what it has known. It will conjure sensation where there is none, holding fast to patterns long after the world has changed. As you settle in the gentle quiet, notice the memories and sensations that persist, the presence of what isn't truly there, the weight of a vanished moment. The phantom limb belief reminds you that what you feel is not always anchored in reality. Sometimes, you are haunted not by loss itself, but by the enduring maps your mind has drawn, quietly shaping your sense of self long after the world has moved on. Imagine yourself in a quiet room at dawn. Pale light spills across the floor, revealing the familiar outlines of tables and chairs. Your eyes are drawn to the places the sunlight touches. Edges become clearer, colors seem to awaken. Yet in the corners, where the light does not reach, shapes blend together. The mind, eager for clarity, clings to what is bright and certain, leaving the shadows quietly unexamined. In daily life, this brightness bias guides what you notice and what you overlook. The stories you remember are those most often told, illuminated by attention, repeated until they feel like the whole truth. But in the background, untold stories linger, quiet and unresolved. Think of a village square at midday. Laughter and chatter gather where the sun is warm, but beneath the trees, old secrets drift in the cool shade, easily missed. Even historians, searching for meaning in the past, find themselves drawn to what is well lit by records and artifacts. Shadowed moments, rumors, silences, forgotten voices require more patience to find. It is easier to believe that what is visible is all that matters. But shadow holds its own truths, memories lost, feelings unspoken, the subtle details that shape a life without fanfare. As you drift, notice how your own mind moves towards ease, preferring the gentle path of light, skipping over what lies in darkness. The shadow is not empty, it is simply harder to see. In its depths, meaning waits, sometimes clearer for having been hidden. The brightness bias soothes with certainty, but the full story always includes the dark. Reality, in the end, is built from both light and shadow, each holding part of what is true. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a long, shadowed corridor. The doorway at the far end flickers with soft light, yet it's hard to tell how far away it truly is. Step forward, and the distance changes in your mind, sometimes shrinking, sometimes stretching out with each careful stride. Your sense of depth is not a perfect ruler, but a set of nervous, shifting impressions, shaped as much by memory and expectation as by what your eyes reveal. In daily life, this subtle uncertainty lingers everywhere. A mason laying stones for a wall squints to judge the right gap, relying on more than just sight, past experience, the rhythm of his breath, the familiar feel of a tool in hand. A traveler walking across a foggy field imagines the village spire is just a little farther than it seems, each step lengthening or shortening the invisible path. In these quiet moments, the world's nearness and distance are measured with a kind of hopeful guessing. History offers its own examples. Medieval navigators would chart their routes by stars and shoreline, sometimes underestimating a bay's width or the reach of a looming headland. Ancient builders puzzled over the space between pillars, trusting the eye more than the tape. Great halls were constructed so that distant torches appeared impossibly close, while nearby alcoves faded into mysterious depth, a quiet trick of architecture and perception. We carry this glitch with us still. What feels close can turn out to be miles away, while the distant can suddenly seem right beside you. The mind stitches its own map from threads of memory, light and shadow, rarely stopping to question its quiet errors. The depth misjudgment glitch is not a flaw, but a gentle reminder that perception is always a guess, one that keeps the world both mysterious and ever-changing. Imagine yourself walking a quiet path at dusk, the air cool and still, when you hear a voice call your name. Instantly, even before you've placed the face, a sense of comfort or trust blooms inside. It's an old instinct. Familiar voices have always meant safety, kinship, a return to what's known. Long ago, in the hush of a medieval village, the sound of a mother or friend's voice rising over the fields brought reassurance in uncertain times. Even in grand halls, where strangers' words swirled among echoes of candlelight, a trusted servant's voice might signal home, loyalty, or simply the rhythm of daily life. The voice familiarity trick is subtle but powerful. Your mind does not carefully weigh the truth of each word before feeling trust. Instead, it leans on echo memory. Those patterns heard and stored, repeated enough times that comfort is mistaken for reliability. A merchant may feel more inclined to trust a returning customer's price or a neighbor's whispered warning, not because of the content, but because the cadence is familiar. In the dim quiet of a scribe's chamber, even a gentle "good evening," spoken nightly by the same voice, becomes a kind of anchor, holding anxiety at bay. Yet comfort is not confirmation. The mind mistakes echo for evidence, allowing repeated or recognizable voices to sway judgment. The pattern repeats itself. At a crowded feast, a soft-spoken ally's suggestion seems wiser than a stranger's advice. In the workshop, a well-known apprentice's idea carries more weight than a visitor's. The rhythm of these choices is rarely noticed, but it shapes the course of daily life. As you rest, the world quieting around you, notice how often your trust is guided by the comfort of echoes rather than the proof of truth. Familiar voices are woven through memory and habit, offering calm, but not certainty. Let this gentle awareness settle. Safety and truth are not always the same, and a voice you know well may simply be an echo, softly returning from the past. Imagine yourself in a quiet room as dusk settles, the edges of objects blurring in the fading light. You set a book down, turn away, and trust it remains where you left it. The world, you believe, continues unchanged beyond your gaze. Yet, deep within, your mind works differently. The sense that things exist, even when out of sight, is a gentle illusion, one that grows with age, but never truly perfects. In early childhood, this myth reveals itself most clearly. Picture a baby playing with a soft cloth. When a rattle disappears beneath the fabric, the child's world seems to shrink. The rattle is lost, absent, forgotten, until it reappears. Over time, this sense of continuity grows, shaped by repetition and gentle assurance. Still, even adults experience moments when what's out of sight slips quietly from awareness. A misplaced key, an unfinished letter, a friend absent from thought until their voice returns. In daily life, you trust in object permanence to give comfort and order. The cup on the table, the shoes by the door, the moon rising beyond the window, all are presumed steady, ever present, even as your senses drift elsewhere. Yet, each thing vanishes from experience the moment your mind turns away. Only when you return does the world rebuild itself, piece by piece, in gentle agreement with memory and expectation. This quiet myth reminds you how fragile your sense of reality can be, how easily things fade from your mind, how much of your world exists only as long as you hold it in awareness. In the hush before sleep, let yourself notice how presence and absence gently shape the edges of your life, each object both there and not, waiting for your attention to bring it softly back into being. Imagine yourself tending a modest garden at the edge of a sleepy village, the soil cool and dark beneath your fingertips. You kneel among the rows, noticing how each plant leans gently toward the sunlight, how the weeds multiply wherever your gaze lingers too long. Day after day, your attention shapes what grows, sometimes carefully, sometimes by accident. This quiet truth runs deeper than the garden itself. Whatever you focus on, in mind or field, begins to flourish. This is the subtle power of the focus bias loop. In daily life, a single worry or fleeting joy can fill your thoughts, coloring each hour with its presence. The more you return to it, the stronger it grows, branching into memory and imagination. The world itself does not change, but your perception does. Fed by the steady drip of your attention, the ordinary becomes urgent, the faintest hope or fear magnified, until it feels all-consuming. In the marketplace, a rumor grows wild because neighbors repeat it, watering it with their whispered concerns. At home, a minor flaw, a chipped cup, a creaky step, gathers significance simply because it's noticed and remembered. What you focus on, whether problem or pleasure, becomes the centerpiece of your experience, crowding out what lies at the edges. As dusk falls and you rise from your garden, you see the shape of your handiwork. Certain plants thriving, others lost to neglect. So too with the mind. Attention is the sunlight, the rain, the gentle hand. The focus bias loop quietly teaches that reality's contours are shaped less by what truly is, and more by what you choose to notice. And as the evening deepens, the world softens around you, inviting you to choose gently what you will water with your awareness tomorrow. Imagine yourself in a sunlit garden, the leaves glowing with a familiar green, the sky a tranquil blue. As clouds drift overhead, the light shifts. What once gleamed now grows muted, but you hardly notice. The colors remain steady in your mind, unchanged by the slow passage of shadows. Your eyes and brain work together, quietly adjusting each hue so the world appears constant and familiar, even as the light is always in motion. This gentle deception, known as color constancy, means you rarely see colors as they truly are. Instead, your mind remembers how things should look, a favorite blanket, the pale surface of an old stone wall, and ensures they appear unchanged, no matter the hour or weather. Walk through an ancient hall, lit by flickering candlelight, and the tapestries still look richly colored. Step outside at twilight, and the path remains the same shade of brown, even as the evening deepens. The world is painted, not by absolute colors, but by your brain's desire for stability. Historians and artists have long noticed how color drifts with emotion and memory. In medieval manuscripts, the same blue might appear vibrant in one image, dull in another, each pigment subtly shaped by the artist's intent and the fading light of a scriptorium. Even now, mood can shift what you see. On a bright, hopeful morning, colors seem to sing. In sorrow, even the brightest rooms lose their warmth. As you let your thoughts wander, consider how much of your world is woven from perception. The colors you trust are built from countless small adjustments, each moment filtered by memory and mood. The color constancy deception soothes with familiarity, painting your days with gentle lies that help the world feel steady, even as it quietly changes all around you. Imagine yourself moving through the gentle rituals of an ordinary day. In the quiet of morning, you are one version of yourself, thoughtful, perhaps quiet, as you sip a warm drink by the window. Later, among friends or colleagues, you notice your words change, your posture shifts, even your laughter sounds a little different. As you slip into other rooms, new roles and patterns emerge. The you who listens to family stories by the fire isn't quite the you who walks alone at dusk, and neither quite matches the image seen by strangers. The sense of self is less a solid statue than a shape-shifting reflection, always present, yet quietly changing. Daily life offers endless chances to notice this mirage. A skilled midwife in a medieval village may be revered inside the sick room, confident and knowledgeable. Outside, she might become reserved, speaking softly at the market or watching from a distance. A traveling merchant learns to blend with every crowd, adopting local customs, accents, and gestures, each new place creating a new layer to their identity. Even in the quiet moments before sleep, you might feel the edges of your personality blur, the day's many roles settling into glans. Across history, this gentle instability is ever present. Kings wore their crowns with assurance in court, yet confessed doubts in private chambers. Scribes crafted careful words for the public, then scribbled secret thoughts in margins. The stories left behind are not about single, unchanging selves, but about people who adapted and shifted, becoming who they needed to be in each new context. The identity glitch mirage is a quiet companion, shaping the boundaries of selfhood with every step and word. You remain you, yet never quite the same. And in this gentle, shifting fiction, perhaps there's a deeper comfort, a reminder that change is not a flaw, but part of what it means to be human. Imagine yourself lying in a quiet room, evening light drifting across the walls. Inside your mind, a voice narrates your thoughts, a constant companion, commenting, questioning, reminding, judging. It feels so personal, so utterly you. But beneath the surface, the voice is not a single self speaking. Instead, it is a soft chorus, woven together from countless echoes of things you've heard before. Throughout history, people have listened to this inner narrator as if it were their own true voice. Yet, if you listen closely, you may notice traces of others, phrases from a parent long ago, the sternness of a teacher, the encouragement of a friend, the gentle warning of a loved one. Each memory, each conversation, leaves a mark. The mind, in its quiet work, gathers these fragments, stitching them together into a seamless thread that sounds like your own. In the daily rhythm of life, the internal monologue shapes perception. A craftsman in a medieval workshop might hear the echoed advice of a mentor guiding his hands. A merchant haggling in a crowded market carries the cautions of elders, the ambitions of peers, all mixed into the private stream of thought. Even a solitary monk, transcribing by candlelight, finds old lessons and distant voices woven into his silent prayers. This illusion is comforting, offering the sense of a stable self, always present. But the reality is more subtle. The monologue is a living mosaic, always shifting as new experiences and voices join the mix. As you rest, with the gentle hush of your own breathing, notice the chorus within. Each thought, each judgment, is an echo, a blend of influence, memory, and habit. The true self is not a single steady voice, but a quiet gathering place, for all that you've heard and lived, gently flowing through the silence of your mind. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, your hand resting on a familiar object, a favorite mug, a well-worn pen, the smooth grain of a wooden chair. With every touch, every glance, each object becomes a little more yours. This is the quiet truth of the object affection bias. The more you use, name, or notice something, the more alive it quietly becomes in your mind. In daily life, this gentle affection grows with repetition. A seamstress runs her fingers over a pair of old scissors, remembering the hours spent shaping fabric. A gardener speaks softly to a row of clay pots, each one holding a story, a season, a hope. The blacksmith feels the balance of his hammer, a trusted companion in the steady rhythm of work. Through touch and use, these tools gather presence, almost a spirit, woven from memory and routine. Even small acts build this quiet bond. A child names a favorite stone and carries it everywhere, convinced it brings luck. A cook reaches for the same spoon each morning, comforted by its weight and shape. Over time, objects used often seem to respond, fitting more easily in the hand, offering a sense of reliability, even calm. The world becomes softer, more personal, as if things themselves know their place in your story. Your brain, ever searching for connection, turns everyday tools into silent friends. The more you touch and use them, the more real they feel, a subtle companionship that eases the passing of days. As you rest, let yourself notice the quiet presence of familiar things, each one gently shaped by your care, made almost alive by your attention and affection. Imagine yourself waking in the quiet blue before dawn, the world outside your window still shrouded in silence. The blankets hold the warmth of forgotten stories, and for a moment, your mind drifts between sleep and waking. A memory flickers, a distant conversation, the laughter of an old friend, the echo of footsteps on rain-washed stones. Yet as you reach for it, the edges blur. Did it truly happen, or was it woven from the fabric of a dream? This is the gentle confusion of the dream memory mix. Each night, as the world fades and sleep draws you under, your mind spins quiet tales, meetings with people you never knew, journeys down unfamiliar roads, voices that speak in riddles. When morning comes, these dream fragments sometimes settle among your real memories, their origins lost in the gentle fog of waking. Later, you might recall a detail, a scent, a phrase, a glimpse of sunlight through unfamiliar windows, and wonder quietly if it was ever real. Daily life continues with its familiar rhythm. Breakfast at the same table, the steady tick of the kitchen clock, a favorite story shared for the 100th time. Yet even these moments are not always anchored in certainty. The mind, in its need for meaning, blends the real with the imagined. Old stories with new inventions. Dreams with lived experience. Over time, memories change shape, growing soft at the edges. colored by the stories you've heard and the wishes you've whispered in the dark. As evening returns and you close your eyes once more, let yourself rest in the comfort of gentle uncertainty. Some memories are true, some are dreamed, and some drift quietly between the two, each one a small thread in the tapestry of your mind, softly blurring the boundaries of reality and imagination. Imagine yourself sitting alone in a quiet room as dusk gathers outside. The air is still, yet beneath the surface, you sense a subtle tension in your muscles, a leftover tremor from an earlier worry or a sudden joy. Strong emotions, once stirred, rarely vanish at once. Instead, they settle deep in the body. A quickened heartbeat, a twist in the stomach, the warmth of remembered laughter. Hours or even days later, you may find yourself reacting not to what's happening now, but to an echo from before. History offers countless glimpses of this silent echo loop. Picture a scribe hunched over a desk, ink staining his fingers. A harsh word from the morning still lingers as a tightness in his chest, coloring the work in front of him. Or a traveler on a lonely road, recalling a past danger, who tenses at every rustle, even though all is calm. The original feeling has passed, yet the body and mind keep reliving its aftershocks. Even in familiar routines, this loop persists. A cook, shaken by an argument, may taste bitterness in food she's made countless times before. A child who once feared the dark may shiver at shadows long after the fear should have faded. The echo is not always obvious, but it quietly shapes each new moment, turning memories into physical sensations, replaying a story that is no longer present. As you drift, notice how the body holds these silent traces, how your perception is gently shaped by the echoes of feelings past. The emotion echo loop is a subtle companion, guiding you through days and nights. Sometimes all it takes to break the cycle is to recognize it, to see that the fear, or longing, or joy is only an echo, no longer the whole truth, but a memory reverberating softly within. Imagine yourself strolling along a quiet lane just before dusk. You catch a glimpse of something at the corner of your eye, a shape, a flicker of movement. Before your gaze settles, your mind is already weaving a meaning, a neighbor perhaps, or a stray cat, or just a shifting shadow. The story arrives before the image does. By the time you actually look, you're already halfway convinced of what you'll see. Meaning, in this gentle trick, comes first. Sight simply fills in the details. In daily life, this silent process hums along without notice. A farmer, hearing distant thunder, looks up at a sky already colored by the thought of coming rain. A merchant on a busy street expects a friend in the crowd, and so his mind paints familiar features onto every passing face. In these moments, the world seems to confirm what you already know, bending reality to fit the shape of expectation. History is filled with stories of meaning guiding perception. Medieval villagers, alert for omens, might see a falling star and instantly read it as a warning or a blessing, even before describing what they'd seen. In courts and marketplaces, rumors transformed small events into legends. Once a tale took root, every new detail seemed to fit, no matter how faint or ambiguous the evidence. Even now, your mind often welcomes meaning before sight. The familiar outline of a home at night, the comfort of known faces in a crowd. These are not just things you see, but things you believe, shaped by countless memories and hopes. The reverse perception effect is a quiet reminder. Reality is often second to interpretation. Meaning leads the way, and the eyes, gentle followers, catch up after. In this calm arrangement, certainty comes softly, often before the world is truly seen. Imagine yourself sitting beside a window, watching soft rain fall on a silent street. A distant bell sounds, and almost at once, the rain seems to lighten. In the quiet rhythm of daily life, your mind quickly weaves a story. The bell must have caused the change, a simple line from A to B. It feels satisfying, this neat pairing of cause and effect, as if the world were stitched together with steady, invisible threads. Throughout history, people have leaned on this comfort. In a medieval village, A baker knocks on wood before placing bread in the oven, certain that this ritual brings luck, because once, on a lucky morning, he happened to do just that. In grand candle-lit halls, nobles might carry talismans, believing that a successful harvest or fortunate meeting was shaped by the charm they clutched the day before. Even in daily chores, a sudden illness after a cold wind, a quarrel after a broken glass, the mind seeks the nearest anchor, naming one thing as the cause of the next. The perceived cause trick is gentle, but persistent. It makes chaos feel less frightening. In the hush of a scholar's study, the first words read on a page are credited with shaping every thought that follows. A parent hears a child's laughter just before a happy letter arrives and quietly, forever, links the two. These false causes become threads in the fabric of memory, providing comfort, order, and sometimes a false sense of control. Yet the world is quieter and more complex than our stories allow. As you rest, the pattern of your own breathing slow and steady. Notice how often your mind reaches for simple explanations, drawing lines from A to B where none exist. The urge to connect is ancient and kind, but not always true. Let the comfort remain, but allow for the wider mystery. A world where many things happen together, sometimes connected, sometimes not, each moment gently unfolding in its own time. Imagine yourself gazing at the clouds on a lazy afternoon. Without effort, shapes begin to appear. A sleepy face, perhaps, drifting among the blue, or the hint of a smile in the folds of mist. You find yourself tracing features in the stone of an old wall, in the worn grain of wood, even in a slice of toasted bread. This is the gentle power of the face pattern compulsion, your mind's quiet tendency to find human faces, even where none exist. All through daily life, this quiet habit shapes how you see the world. The front of an old house seems to smile with its windows and door. Shadows on the floor form the curve of an eyebrow, the line of a jaw. Even in the bark of a tree or the surface of a cliff, two knots and a crack become eyes and a mouth. Familiar, comforting, almost alive. Your brain is always searching for faces, tuned by countless generations to notice even the faintest trace of one. Long ago, this instinct kept people safe, spotting a friend, a stranger, or a hidden danger from the smallest clue. Now, it lingers as a gentle background to everyday vision, offering the comfort of connection in unexpected places. You may smile at a pumpkin's grin or pause at a pattern in the tiles, your mind briefly convinced it has found company. As you drift into rest, notice how the world fills with gentle faces, real and imagined, each one a quiet reminder of your longing for connection and understanding. The face pattern compulsion brings a soft familiarity to the world, weaving traces of humanity into the patterns of your day, even when you are completely alone. Imagine yourself seated in a quiet room, late sunlight casting patterns across the floor. The gentle ticking of a distant clock is joined by the faint, ever-present hush of life outside your window. In this calm, it feels as if you are the fixed point, the unmoving center around which everything turns. Every memory, every decision, each passing thought seems to spiral out from this single perspective, your own. Yet beyond the glass, the world shifts in ways you cannot fully see. Each neighbor crossing the street carries their own story, their own worries and joys, each as vivid to them as yours are to you. The baker at his counter, the child in a window, the woman pausing beneath the trees, they all imagine themselves at the center, each one believing the rhythm of the day begins and ends with their footsteps. This is the gentle distortion of the centered self-bias. From the vantage point of your own senses, you feel stable, real, the author of your daily life. Yet perception, in its quiet honesty, reminds you, you are one flickering pixel in a giant, ever-shifting canvas. Your thoughts and feelings, so immediate, are small details in a scene that stretches far beyond your reach. In daily life, it's easy to forget this truth. Each routine, each private sorrow or secret hope appears to fill the horizon. But as dusk settles and the lights of the city begin to glow, a broader pattern comes into view, a world woven from countless viewpoints, each shining briefly, each part of a larger design. And as you close your eyes to rest, let yourself drift on this gentle realization. You are important, but not alone at the center. You are a single, flickering point of awareness, moving quietly through the vast, living mural that is the world. Imagine yourself in a bustling market at dawn. The air is filled with a chorus of voices and the clang of metal, scents of bread and spices weaving through the crowd. At first, every sense is alive and alert, sight, sound, touch, and smell all mingling. But as you focus on a single sound, a distant bell, a familiar laugh, the colors and textures around you seem to dim. What you hear takes over, quieting the rest. This is the cycle of sense dominance. When one sensation grows strong, others quietly slip away. A candlelit room at night glows with golden light, drawing your gaze. You become absorbed in the flicker of flame, the shadows it paints across the walls, and soon the hush of distant music fades. The softness of the chair beneath you is forgotten. The world shrinks to what you see, while other senses wait in the wings. In the lives of musicians and storytellers, this cycle is a daily companion. A singer lost in song might not notice the chill of the room or the gaze of an audience. A painter, absorbed in color and line, barely hears the ticking of a clock. Even in ordinary routines, the mind chooses, sometimes without knowing, which sense will shape the moment. So much of daily life flows through these shifting cycles. A scent from childhood can erase all other sounds, drawing you into memory. The feel of cool water on your hands can make conversation drift away. The senses are not equal partners. They take turns at the center, each one painting its own version of reality. As you settle into stillness, notice how focus moves, how easily sound can mute touch, how sight can silence thought. The sense-dominant cycle is a quiet director, shaping the story of each moment, guiding you gently from one perception to the next. Imagine yourself listening to the gentle murmur of conversation in a shaded courtyard. Words drift past like leaves on water, some phrases clear and complete, others quietly broken by the sound of footsteps or a distant bell. Yet, as you listen, your mind stitches the gaps, filling missing words without effort. The sentences sound whole, the stories smooth and unbroken, as if you'd heard every syllable. This is the quiet work of memory, a subtle rewriting that values fluency over absolute truth. In daily life, this illusion moves with you. A scribe in a medieval scriptorium copies out long texts by candlelight, his mind smoothing over the cracks where a word was smudged or faded. The story remains fluid, the meaning continuous, even as tiny fragments are silently mended by expectation. In the market, a merchant catches only half a conversation, yet feels certain she knows what was said, her mind quickly patching over the missing parts, guided by habit and context. This gentle editing is ancient and universal. In courts and households, children listen to tales interrupted by laughter or a closing door, yet years later recall the stories as seamless and complete. Even grand chronicles of kings and battles, written and rewritten, are shaped by the same urge, to make the past feel whole, even when memory has lost a word or two along the way. Your mind prefers fluency, smoothing out the rough edges so that experience feels continuous. But this comfort is also a quiet distortion. What you recall so clearly may not be exactly what was said. The missing word memory is a gentle companion, quietly reshaping each story so that it flows with certainty, even as the truth softly drifts away. In the calm of evening, you might find yourself wondering what words were truly spoken and which ones your mind so kindly filled in. Imagine yourself seated by a quiet fire, the air thick with the scent of old wood and faint traces of smoke. In this stillness, a thought arises. something you've heard before or perhaps simply sensed. It feels right, as if it's always been part of you. Without thinking, you accept it, the way one accepts warmth from the flames, naturally, without question. This is the blind trust reflex, a subtle habit of the mind, where comfort and familiarity become the test for truth. Throughout history, people have trusted what felt right, even when the facts remained uncertain. In the dim corners of medieval homes, old remedies were passed down with certainty, defended with passion, because they felt safe, proven by memory, even when evidence was lacking. In grand halls, whispers of conspiracy or favor traveled quickly, gaining strength not from proof, but from the ease with which they echoed old beliefs. This reflex is not a flaw, but a gentle protection. The mind, faced with too much uncertainty, turns to feeling as a guide. Imagine a craftsman in a noisy market, choosing wood by the feel of its grain, or a healer trusting an herb because its scent reminds her of home. In these quiet rituals, feeling becomes a shield against doubt, a way to navigate a world too complex to test every truth. But the comfort of feeling is not always matched by reality. Sometimes, the ideas most fiercely defended are those that simply feel truest, regardless of proof. A parent, guided by instinct, may cling to a belief about a child's future. A neighbor, certain of a rumor, may defend it as if it were memory. In each case, the line between feeling and fact grows gently blurred. As you settle in, listening to the steady rhythm of your own breath, notice the ideas you hold tightest. Are they grounded in proof or simply wrapped in the comfort of feeling? The blind trust reflex is ancient and kind, but the world is wider than instinct alone. With gentle curiosity, let yourself notice where comfort ends and truth begins, drifting quietly between what is felt and what is real. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet street in early evening. The world in front of you is clear, the pavement, the doors and windows, the slow movement of passing figures. But all around the edges, the scene grows softer. The colors fade, shapes blur, and movement becomes a quiet suggestion, more felt than truly seen. This is the subtle truth of the peripheral attention myth. You believe you're taking in everything, yet most of what surrounds you drifts quietly out of focus. Throughout your day, your eyes sweep across rooms, fields, and faces. You sense the world as complete and detailed, but your mind fills in the spaces your eyes barely touch. The shelf behind you, the shifting light along the wall, the turning of a stranger's head. These are sensed more as atmosphere than as detail. Your brain gently sketches the world's edges, letting them fade until they're needed, saving energy for what matters most. In busy markets, children dart just out of sight, voices blend together, and you feel more than see the constant movement. At home, a pet might slip past the edge of your vision, the motion noticed, the details lost. Even in familiar places, much of what you think you see is a soft impression, an echo of light and motion. Only when you turn to focus do the edges sharpen and become real. This quiet habit keeps you steady, letting you move through the world without overwhelm. Your mind assures you the world is whole, even as the periphery remains softly unfinished. As you rest, notice the comfort in not seeing everything, letting the edges of your world blur gently, a reminder that sometimes suggestion is enough to carry you through. Imagine yourself strolling down a quiet lane at dawn, the world around you washed in the soft light of a new day. The air is cool, carrying scents you can't quite name, perhaps fresh bread or the dew on unfamiliar flowers. Every sound feels crisp, every color unusually vivid. You pause, noticing a freshly painted door or a stranger's laughter drifting from an open window, and for a moment it seems as though these new details burn brighter than everything familiar. This is the gentle illusion of the novelty glow effect. When something enters your life for the first time, a new friend, a different route home, an unexpected taste or tune, your mind leans in, attentive and alert. The unfamiliar draws your gaze and holds it, colors appearing richer, moments unfolding with a curious intensity. The ordinary, by contrast, fades quietly into the background, its edges blurred by routine. Daily life, in its slow rhythm, is full of such moments. The first day with a new object, the first hour in a new place, the first sound of a different language. These experiences carry a shimmer, as if reality itself has grown sharper, more important. Yet this brightness is not always truth, but the soft trick of perception, a glow born of contrast, not of inherent value. Over time, what was once dazzling settles into quiet familiarity. The door becomes part of the street, the scent blends with the air, the laughter is replaced by your own quiet thoughts. The novelty fades, and what remains is softer, less demanding, a gentle background to the unfolding day. As evening falls and the world's colors soften, you might reflect on how often newness captures your attention, how quickly the glow dims. The reality beneath remains unchanged, only your perception has shifted, lending borrowed brilliance to what is simply new. And as you settle into rest, let yourself notice not just the novel, but the enduring quiet beauty that waits in the familiar, always patient to be seen again. Imagine yourself walking a winding path through the woods. There are countless turns and forks, each promising a different destination. Rather than pausing to ponder every choice, your mind selects the familiar route, guided by subtle memories and instinct. These mental shortcuts, or heuristics, are always at work, steering you through daily decisions with quiet efficiency. They make life smoother, helping you respond without being overwhelmed. But with each shortcut taken, something is left behind. In markets and workshops throughout history, these shortcuts shaped the rhythm of daily life. A craftsman reaching for a tool chooses the one he's always used, confident in its weight and feel. A merchant, faced with a new coin, judges its value not by careful inspection, but by resemblance to coins seen before. Most of the time, these quick judgments serve well, but sometimes the easy path diverts from the truth, leading quietly into error. Even in grand decisions, who to trust, what to believe, these shortcuts persist. The mind prefers what is familiar, what feels simple, what has worked in the past. This habit protects against confusion, but also makes you vulnerable to mistakes, blind spots, and old habits repeating. Important details slip past, unnoticed, as the brain moves swiftly through the day. As you relax, consider how often these gentle traps appear. The familiar answer chosen without thought, the subtle bias guiding your gaze. The mental shortcut trap is never far away, quietly shaping your choices and beliefs. Sometimes, all it takes to step free is a moment of awareness, a pause to see the longer path, even if it is less familiar. In that space, the fuller truth waits, patient and quiet, just beyond the next turn. Imagine yourself wandering down a quiet path lined with wildflowers and damp earth. The air is thick with the scent of rain-soaked leaves, and suddenly, time itself seems to shift. In an instant, a familiar smell, fresh bread from a distant kitchen, the sharp tang of wood smoke, or the sweet perfume of a long-forgotten flower, pulls you out of the present. For a moment, you are no longer here, but somewhere deep in your past. A single scent has become an anchor, collapsing the long arc of memory into a single, vivid second. In daily life, this quiet magic is always at work. A medieval baker, dusted in flour, pauses as the aroma of spice reminds him of festival days from childhood, laughter echoing just beyond the edge of thought. A traveler, passing through a foreign market, breathes in the familiar trace of herbs and is instantly transported to a garden left behind. Even a scribe, alone in a dim chamber, is distracted by the faint smell of parchment and ink, memories of past lessons and stories rising all at once. Across history and culture, the power of scent to distort time is quietly woven into ritual and routine. Incense lingers in ancient temples, carrying prayers across generations. Lavender sachets, tucked into linen chests, recall the hands that folded them, decades or even centuries before. For kings and commoners alike, A single whiff can bring back lost places, old friends, or forgotten moments, all condensed into one overwhelming sensation. The scent anchor glitch is a gentle reminder your sense of smell is a time traveler, moving silently between worlds. Each fragrance is a thread, tying you to the past, binding together the story of your days. In this soft confusion of time and memory, you find comfort, a fleeting, vivid visit to moments you thought you'd left behind. Imagine yourself seated at a long wooden table, surrounded by scattered notes, a cooling cup of tea, and a softly ticking clock. You pick up one page, then another. Your eyes dart between them, as if you might absorb both stories at once. But the mind is quieter and slower than the world around you suggests. In reality, there is no true multitasking, only a gentle tug of war, with your attention pulled first one way, then another, never truly at rest. Throughout history, daily life has invited this gentle struggle. In a medieval kitchen, a cook stirs the pot, listens for footsteps, and tries to recall the next step in a recipe, believing all can be held together at once. A scholar in a candle-lit study glances from one open book to another, his mind leaping between arguments, each switch leaving a faint haze of forgotten words behind. Even a child at play, half listening for a parent's call while building a fragile tower, learns the slow cost of divided focus. The tower falls, or the call is missed. This attention tug-of-war is not a failure, but a quiet rhythm of the mind. Each time you shift from task to task, a small moment is lost, an unfinished thought, a blurred memory, a missed detail. The mind, gentle and limited, does its best to keep pace, but the cost is always clarity. Imagine a merchant in a busy market, mind split between weighing grain and counting coins, noticing only fragments of each exchange. The story of the day becomes a patchwork, stitched together from moments caught in between. As you settle in, letting your own thoughts drift and slow, notice how often your attention is tugged in several directions. The world is full of small demands, but clarity comes softly, in the quiet focus of one thing at a time. Let yourself rest in the gentle truth. Every switch has a cost, but every moment of calm attention is its own reward. The mind, like a quiet room, finds depth and comfort in lingering with what matters most, one soft breath at a time. Imagine yourself sitting quietly as the day ends, the sounds outside your window fading into the hush of evening. Even in this peaceful moment, your mind drifts toward worries, unfinished tasks, a stray regret, a piece of troubling news overheard at breakfast. This is the gentle pull of the negative bias loop. Your mind is tuned to notice the shadows more than the light, a quiet habit rooted in survival. Long ago, this bias kept your ancestors safe. They watched the horizon for danger, listened for hints of trouble in the brush, remembered each loss more sharply than any easy victory. To survive, they learned to hold on to the memory of threat, disappointment, or pain. Now, even when danger is rare, your mind continues the same rhythm, replaying mistakes, dwelling on slights, quietly darkening the color of calm days. Throughout daily life, this loop shapes your mood and memory. A kind word may drift away, while a harsh one lingers. Successes fade quickly, but small failures replay themselves quietly, again and again. Even in comfort, your thoughts may circle back to anxieties, gently keeping you on guard. Yet, within this loop is a quiet kindness. Your mind wants to keep you prepared, to shield you from harm. As you drift into rest, notice the gentle weight of your thoughts, and let them pass like clouds at dusk. The world is often softer than your mind imagines, and with each breath, you can invite a little more light to balance the shadows. In time, the negative bias quiets, leaving room for the gentle peace waiting just beyond. Imagine yourself alone in a quiet room, the door softly closed behind you, the hush so complete you can hear your own breathing. A stray gust rattles the window pane. The floor creaks beneath your feet. For a moment, you feel the gentle pressure of unseen eyes, as if someone stands just out of sight, attentive and silent. Yet when you turn, there is only the steady glow of lamplight and the slow drift of dust in the air. This is the phantom presence sensation, a quiet, persistent illusion that hums at the edges of solitude. Your mind, shaped by centuries of community and watchful company, cannot always rest in perfect aloneness. Even in an empty house or on a path through silent woods, you might sense that you're being observed, your smallest movements monitored by an audience that does not exist. The feeling is soft, rarely alarming, but it lingers, gentle as a shadow in fading light. In daily life, this sensation arises at odd moments, a whisper of apprehension while reading late at night, the urge to look over your shoulder as you lock the door, the feeling that a familiar room holds something more than furniture and memory. The brain, so attuned to faces and glances, simulates presence automatically, just in case, just for safety, an echo of times when being alone was rare and vigilance meant survival. Over time, the sensation fades, replaced by the deeper comfort of solitude or the warmth of real company. Yet its traces remain, a readiness to imagine eyes in the darkness, a quiet habit of checking the corners of empty rooms. As you settle into the calm of the evening, let yourself notice how your mind shapes the space around you, filling it with gentle phantoms. Alone or not, you are accompanied by the subtle artistry of your own awareness, forever rehearsing the possibility of another presence, just in case. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of an empty room. The air is still, the walls bare, and every small sound seems to echo. With no furniture to anchor your eye, the space stretches out in all directions, larger than its true measure. Your mind, drawn by the openness, begins to fill the void, perhaps with imagined gatherings, or quiet solitude, or even a flicker of unease. In the emptiness, possibilities multiply, and the boundaries of the room blur. This illusion is ancient and ordinary. In grand halls left vacant after a feast, the lingering scent of food and laughter fades, and what remains is a hush that makes the chamber feel vast. Even a modest cottage, emptied of its daily clutter, can seem to breathe and expand, inviting memories or daydreams to drift in. The mind dislikes a void. It rushes to fill the empty space with meaning, with stories both comforting and strange. In moments of solitude, empty places can soothe, a library closed for the night, a church before dawn. Here, the mind finds room to wander, stretching the silence into gentle reflection. But emptiness can also awaken worry. In the dark, an empty alley may feel boundless and uncertain, every shadow hinting at something hidden. The imagination quietly enlarges what is unknown. So, as you let your mind drift, notice how empty spaces shape your sense of reality. The space expansion illusion is not just a trick of the eye, but a gentle collaboration between mind and surroundings. Rooms grow or shrink according to your thoughts, filled by your hopes, memories, or quiet fears. In the silence of an empty room, the world becomes a little larger, shaped by the unseen contours of imagination. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a sunlit room as people move softly around you. Without a word, the room's atmosphere shifts, a subtle tightening, a wave of ease, or a hush of tension. You sense it before you understand it, the mood passing invisibly from one person to the next. This is the emotional contagion lens, a silent filter that colors your feelings through the tiniest signals. A clenched jaw, a flicker of worry in someone's eyes, a half smile, all pass unnoticed by your conscious mind, yet your mood quietly bends to match. In daily life, this invisible current flows everywhere. At a village gathering, laughter spreads like warmth, softening the crowd. At a tense council meeting, discomfort passes in the space between breaths, spreading through the group before anyone speaks. Even in small households, a single sigh or a subtle glance can ripple through the evening, changing the quiet rhythm of chores and conversations. Throughout history, people have gathered in crowds, courts, or around hearths, their emotions moving as one, sometimes with joy, sometimes with dread. In ancient marketplaces, excitement or suspicion could shape the fate of a bargain before a word was exchanged. A medieval healer could ease pain not only with remedies, but with calm presence, her serenity passing quietly to others, soothing worry with a soft touch or a gentle look. The emotional contagion lens reminds us that feeling is rarely a solitary act. You are shaped by the people around you, by their fears and hopes, their calm and their excitement, whether you notice or not. These silent signals, passed in the briefest expressions, create a shared mood that is both fragile and powerful. In this gentle web of feeling, your heart quietly tunes itself to the world, finding comfort or caution in the faces nearby. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a room with others, the air still and warm. Without thinking, you find your hands folding in your lap just as someone across from you does, or your head tilting ever so slightly in time with theirs. These are not decisions, but gentle echoes, unconscious gestures passed quietly from person to person. In every shared space, your body collects these movements, mapping the subtle landscape of connection and belonging. Across history, people have mirrored each other's gestures, weaving invisible threads through daily life. In a medieval tavern, laughter ripples through the crowd, each nod and smile reflected back, building a common mood. In the dim glow of a scholar's study, students lean forward when the teacher does, their movements synchronized in concentration and quiet respect. Even in the routines of family life, a child copies a parent's way of standing, a sibling mimics another's stretch or sigh, all without notice. This unconscious gesture map is the mind's gentle way of blending self with others. Your body picks up the subtle rhythms of those around you, tuning itself to shared moods, unspoken agreements, silent sympathies. In moments of comfort, the mirroring is easy, a shared yawn, the matching of a friend's laughter. In times of tension, crossed arms or lowered gazes ripple quietly through a group, each person marking the same invisible boundary. The gestures you carry become a living map of every place and person you've known, a collection of soft imitations, layered over years. As you settle into stillness, you might notice the way your own movements echo those from the past. A favorite chair, inviting a certain way of sitting, a familiar room triggering an old habit. With each gentle breath, let this awareness bring comfort. You are not isolated, but always connected, your gestures shaped and softened by the world around you. The unconscious map you draw is a quiet testament to belonging, a living record of every room, every gathering, every gentle presence you have mirrored and been mirrored by in return. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet hallway, morning light slanting through the window, pooling in patches across the floor. The world around you seems solid, layered, some objects close, others further away, each shape defined by subtle shadows and the gentle play of light. Yet much of this sense of depth is a soft illusion, a quiet trick played by your brain to help you move through space. From the earliest days, people have trusted their eyes to read distance and form. A stone on the ground appears more real because it casts a small shadow. The folds in a curtain, the roundness of a bowl, the arch of a doorway, all seem to stand out from their backgrounds, given depth by contrast and careful hints of darkness. But beneath this certainty, your mind is always making quiet guesses, using context and familiar cues to fill in what isn't truly there. Even a painted wall can seem to ripple with shapes if the light falls just so. A flat picture takes on a three-dimensional feel as your mind interprets gentle gradients, subtle edges, and familiar patterns. Walk past a familiar chair, and it seems to exist in space, not because your eyes see all of it, but because your brain gently invents the rest, stitching together shadows and context to give comfort and clarity. As you settle into rest, notice how the world's depth is often a gentle invention, a story told by light and your own expectation. The pseudo-depth effect brings a quiet order to what is, at heart, a flat surface, reminding you how much of your reality is softly built on trust, imagination, and the quiet work of perception. Imagine yourself setting aside a half-written letter, the ink still glistening faintly under the lamplight. You rise and walk to another room, drawn by the promise of tea or the call of some small task. Yet, as you move through the quiet house, part of your mind lingers with the letter, words unfinished, thoughts suspended in midair. The world around you is soft and real, yet there's a subtle mist in your awareness, as if the echo of what you were doing clings to you, faint but persistent. This is the attention residue phenomenon. Your mind, ever faithful to its recent focus, leaves traces behind even as you shift from one moment to the next. You may sit with a friend and find your thoughts drifting back to an earlier conversation. Or you begin a new book only to notice memories of the day swirling at the edges of your concentration. It's not distraction in the sharp sense, but more a gentle leaking of attention, focus bleeding like watercolor across the page of your mind. Daily life offers countless moments like this. Chores left half done, conversations ended abruptly, tasks paused for the sake of something more urgent. Each leaves a residue, a quiet presence that shadows your next steps. Even when you try to let go, your mind tugs you backward, reminding you of what remains unfinished, what still needs tending. As the evening deepens and you move from task to task, you may feel these lingering traces settling softly into the background. With time, they dissolve, blending into the comfort of routine or the hush of rest. Yet their gentle persistence is a reminder. Focus is never perfectly contained. The mind is a landscape shaped by what came before, each new moment quietly colored by the fading echoes of the last. Imagine yourself sitting by a window, watching the world beyond the glass. The familiar shapes of trees and rooftops are softened by your own memories and expectations. Sometimes, what you see is quietly rearranged by the beliefs you carry within. Your inner world is not just a filter. It can override the senses themselves, turning subtle illusions into solid facts, guiding what you notice and what you forget. Consider the daily rituals of villagers listening for omens in the call of birds or the pattern of clouds. When the mind expects a sign, it finds one, sometimes hearing what isn't truly there. In the hush of night, a distant sound can transform into a message. An ordinary shape becomes a warning or a blessing, because belief shapes the very texture of perception. The senses receive signals, but the mind decides what they mean, sometimes rewriting reality to match the story you already hold inside. History is filled with quiet examples. A healer convinced of the power of an herb might sense its scent where none exists, her belief so strong it overrides the faintness of reality. A worried parent, fearing illness, may see a flush on a child's cheek even in the softest candlelight, sure of a fever not felt. The mind, eager for meaning, gently bends what is seen, heard, or touched, until it fits the inner truth. As you settle into stillness, notice how the beliefs you carry might shape the world you encounter. The inner world override is rarely dramatic. Instead, it's a gentle merging of expectation and experience, memory and moment. In this quiet space between what is sensed and what is believed, reality becomes a story, written as much by the heart and mind as by the world outside your window. Imagine yourself searching for a familiar face in a crowd at dusk. You scan the shifting forms and shadows, feeling certain you'll spot the person you seek. And then, almost as if by magic, you see them, or think you do. Your mind rushes to fill in the gaps, the curve of a shoulder, a glint of hair, the way they once smiled at you in a similar light. The line between reality and imagination blurs, as expectation quietly guides your vision. This is the expectation hallucination loop, your desire quietly painting in the missing details, so convincingly that your senses can barely tell the difference. In the gentle rhythm of daily life, this illusion is always at work. A shepherd watches the horizon at dawn, expecting to see his lost sheep, and every movement in the mist becomes a sign of hope. In a quiet workshop, a craftswoman, longing for a sign that her work is finished, starts to see perfection in places she never would have before. The mind is eager to reward expectation, sometimes conjuring what isn't there, sometimes making the familiar seem new. Across history, people have trusted this quiet trick. Villagers searching for omens before a harvest often see what they most wish for: a bright star, a cloud shaped like a sign of luck, while explorers staring into the darkness of a cave imagine hidden passageways, their hopes painting shadows into shapes. The world, it seems, shifts and rearranges itself to match what you want to find. The expectation hallucination loop is a gentle reminder that your senses are not just windows to the world, but artists with longing as their palette. What you seek, you often find, not because it's truly there, but because your mind wishes it so, softly filling in the spaces left by doubt and desire. Imagine yourself walking slowly through a crowded marketplace, sunlight shifting across baskets of fruit, woven cloth, and polished metal. The air hums with voices, colors, and movement, far more than you could ever notice at once. Each detail is vivid, but only for a moment. Your mind, quietly overwhelmed, begins to choose. It lets certain faces, sounds, and patterns rise to the surface, while the rest dissolves softly into background haze. Throughout history, the too much to see problem has quietly shaped how people navigate the world. In a bustling medieval square, a merchant can't keep track of every passerby, so he notices only a handful, the ones with loud voices, familiar hats, or unusual gestures. A scholar in a dimly lit library scans shelves of dusty volumes, but remembers only the titles that shimmer with meaning or memory. Even in the hush of a family home, the mind selects what matters: a child's laughter, the rhythm of a clock, the smell of bread. The rest blurs gently, passing by unnoticed. The brain's solution to this constant flood of data is to summarize. With each blink, your senses gather more than you could ever hold, so your mind builds a smaller story, a version of reality trimmed to fit your attention. You see patterns where there is only noise, recognize familiar shapes even when they shift, and fill in gaps with memory or guesswork. These summaries help you move through the world with ease, but they also mean that much is missed, overlooked, or imagined. As you settle into quiet, feel the rhythm of your own breath, and notice how the world softens at the edges. Your mind, always guessing, lets the gentle summary take shape, offering comfort in simplicity. The details you see are only the beginning, a selective sketch drawn by a mind that must choose what to hold and what to let drift away. In the gentle blur of too much to see, rest in the knowledge that missing details is not a flaw, but a quiet way of finding calm within the endless, shifting world. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet riverbank at dusk. The air is cool, the water calm, and each stone beneath your feet feels solid and real. Yet, as you pause and look around, you notice how your sense of the world is shaped by quiet comparisons. The river feels wide after a narrow stream, the evening mild after a cold morning. This is the gentle rhythm of the relative perception rule. You judge nothing by itself, but always in relation to something else. In daily life, this pattern shapes every moment. A meal tastes richer after hunger. A simple room seems grand if you have come from hardship. Even your mood rises and falls by contrast. A good day is only so because of those that felt less kind. Your mind, quietly working in the background, is always measuring, weighing, comparing, and assigning meaning by subtle reference points. Consider an old merchant in a crowded market. The weight of a coin feels different depending on what he held before. A cloth seems softer, a voice kinder when placed beside others. This habit carries through history, shaping the lives of nobles and laborers alike, each one caught in the gentle web of comparison. As you settle in for rest, let yourself notice how this rule guides your feelings and memories. Nothing is ever only itself. Each thing, each moment, is gently tinted by what came before. The world becomes softer, more manageable, as your mind organizes experience by quiet contrast, finding comfort in the gentle patterns of relation and change. Imagine yourself sitting beneath an old tree at the edge of a meadow. The air is soft with the warmth of late afternoon. Insects drift lazily, and the grass waves in slow, almost imperceptible currents. All around, the world holds its breath in peaceful stillness. But suddenly, a sparrow darts across your field of vision. Your gaze snaps to it, following the flash of feathers. For a moment, the meadow's gentle quiet disappears, erased by the urgency of that single, vivid motion. This is the movement blindness effect, a subtle bias woven deep into your mind. Through countless generations, your brain learned to be alert to the flicker of movement, a sudden rustle in the grass, a shadow gliding overhead, a branch trembling when all else is calm. These moments of motion draw your awareness with irresistible force, pulling your attention away from what stays steady and silent. Daily life is filled with these small, unnoticed lessons. In a crowded room, your eyes are drawn to a gesture, a glance, a shifting form. At home, a sudden change, a pet leaping from its spot, a curtain stirring in the wind, momentarily erases the still backdrop you'd stopped seeing. The mind prioritizes change, scanning always for what might signal risk or opportunity. And in doing so, it lets peace slip quietly out of sight. As dusk falls and the meadow grows shadowed, stillness returns. The tree, the grass, the hush, they blend once more into the edges of your awareness, their quiet beauty easily overlooked. Yet, in these moments of calm, the world is not empty but rich and full, patiently waiting for you to notice the peace that is always there. When movement passes, let yourself see the gentle world that remains, a reminder that not all that matters clamors for your attention. Imagine yourself entering a quiet hall, footsteps muffled by thick stone and shuttered windows. The air is perfectly still. Faces around you are composed, eyes lowered or turned away. There's no sign of tension, no raised voices or urgent gestures, only a hush that settles over everything. Your mind, seeking reassurance, reads this calm as a sign of safety. But beneath the surface, something else might stir. Throughout history, silence and stillness have been mistaken for peace. In a medieval courtroom, the accused stands motionless, lips pressed tight. The onlookers, faces unreadable, give nothing away. Yet beneath that facade, hearts may race, alliances may shift, and intentions quietly gather strength. The mask of calm is not always truth. It is sometimes a defense, sometimes a trap, concealing what must not be seen. In daily life, this filter shapes how you move through the world. The teacher with gentle words but a weary sigh, the neighbor who greets you with a soft smile but carries old grief, all may pass as calm. Your brain, eager to find patterns, treats emotional neutrality as a sign that all is well. The surface soothes, even when danger or sorrow waits in the quiet depths. This is the fake calm filter, a subtle illusion woven from silence and unchanging expressions. It protects and obscures, letting true feelings go unnoticed, letting risk pass by under the gentle cover of stillness. As you drift in the hush of evening, notice how much is hidden behind calm surfaces. Sometimes, true safety lies not in the absence of emotion, but in the honesty of its quiet presence. The mind, craving peace, may overlook the storms that silence can hide. Imagine yourself in a quiet room painted with gentle blue. The air feels cool, your mind slows, and a soft calm settles over you. Later, you step into a space warmed by sunlight and ochre walls and notice your thoughts quicken, spirits lifted with a hint of energy. Colors do more than decorate the world. They shape the rhythm of your emotions, guiding feelings in ways you rarely notice. This is the color-emotion fusion, where colors become moods that your eyes translate into silent language. In daily life, this gentle effect weaves through every moment. A farmer wakes before dawn and walks into the pale green of new leaves, finding hope for the day ahead. At dusk, The golden wash of sunset fills a kitchen with a quiet reassurance, reminding a tired family that rest is near. The crimson of ripe fruit in the market, the rich browns of earth after rain, each shade draws forth feelings, not as a thought, but as a subtle undercurrent. Across cultures and centuries, people have sensed this connection. Medieval artisans chose pigments for chapels and manuscripts with care, hoping deep blues would inspire reverence, while bright golds would spark awe. In distant markets, merchants knew which cloth would sell fastest on a cloudy day, their choices guided by a quiet intuition of color and mood. Even in solemn rituals, robes and banners were chosen as much for feeling as for meaning. The color-emotion fusion is a gentle companion, blending sight and feeling until they become nearly the same thing. The world's palette shapes your heart's weather, sometimes softly, sometimes with startling intensity. And as you move through each day, surrounded by color's silent language, your mood shifts in response, finding comfort, energy, or peace in every hue that passes before your eyes. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet gathering, sunlight drifting through an open window. Around you, people speak softly, but it's the language of hands and faces that seems to fill the space. The tilt of a head, a wave, a brief nod, the arch of an eyebrow. Without effort, your mind translates these gestures, wrapping them in familiar meaning. A smile feels like a welcome. Crossed arms signal distance. A gentle touch is reassurance. But beneath this comfort, an unseen puzzle lingers. Not all gestures speak the same language everywhere. Throughout history, the gesture translation bias has quietly shaped encounters across cultures. In a medieval marketplace, a nod might signal agreement to one merchant, while another sees only indifference. In distant halls, a wave could be a warm greeting or a dismissive farewell, depending on the rules quietly learned in childhood. Even in daily life, the same gesture, a shrug, a handshake, a glance held a moment too long, can carry warmth or warning, trust or suspicion, shaped by the silent codes of family and place. This bias is not a flaw, but a gentle shortcut. The mind, always searching for certainty, fills in the gaps with what feels true. Imagine a traveler, far from home, offering a polite gesture meant as gratitude, only to find confusion or offense reflected in another's eyes. Even among friends, meaning can shift. A playful nudge in one group is an intrusion in another. The gestures you've learned become a private language, rarely questioned, quietly assumed. As you settle into quiet, listening to the gentle rhythm of your breath, notice how much of your world is built from movements interpreted through memory and habit. The meanings you assign are part comfort, part guess, shaped by countless silent lessons. In the gentle haze of sleep, let this uncertainty rest softly. The world of gestures is vast and varied, and every movement carries more possibility than a single mind can ever fully know. To misread is only human, a gentle reminder that meaning is always, quietly, a translation. Imagine yourself returning to a familiar street at dusk. The shapes of houses, the curve of the path, the gentle rustle of leaves, all feel quietly welcoming. There's comfort in the way the lamplight falls, in the faces that pass by, in the sense that here, nothing will surprise you. This is the subtle work of the familiarity. Safety shortcut. Your mind marks what is known as safe, offering you a gentle sense of ease, even when caution might still be wise. Throughout daily life, this shortcut shapes how you move and feel. The worn handle of your own door, the mug you reach for each morning, the rhythm of voices you've heard 1,000 times, each one brings reassurance. Faces you know, even if only in passing, are quickly placed in the safe part of your mind, their presence softening the edges of your day. This is the same quiet comfort that helped your ancestors feel at home in their villages and wary among strangers. Yet comfort can be misleading. A familiar path can hold hidden stones, and a well-known face can still conceal intentions. Your brain, trained by generations to value the known, may gently lower your guard, missing quiet signals or subtle dangers. The warmth of routine sometimes hides what deserves attention. As you drift toward rest, notice how easily the familiar becomes a source of calm. Let this comfort soothe you, but remember, the mind's shortcuts are only gentle guides, not guarantees. In the soft repetition of daily life, safety often feels like certainty, even as the world quietly changes, waiting for you to notice what's truly there. Imagine yourself sitting by a window as morning light slowly fills the room. Your eyes wander from the delicate lace of the curtain to the play of sunlight on the floor, then to the shifting shapes of people outside. Each glance feels smooth, as if your sight flows without interruption, every moment neatly stitched to the next. But hidden beneath this calm continuity lies a secret. You are, for the briefest slices of time, completely blind. This is the quiet mystery of time gap stitching. Each time your eyes move, a quick dart from shadow to light, from page to clock, the world flickers away. For milliseconds, you see nothing at all, yet you never sense these gaps. Your mind, practiced and precise, fills in the missing pieces, smoothing over each interruption. What you experience as seamless vision is, in truth, a careful illusion, a silent tapestry woven from fragments and guesses. In daily life, these invisible gaps pass unnoticed. The rhythm of walking down a familiar street, the sweep of glances in a market, the comfort of reading a beloved book, all are built on countless patches of missing time, each gap sealed before you can notice. Your brain works quietly, painting over the empty spaces so skillfully that reality seems unbroken. As day drifts into evening and your gaze softens, the truth remains gentle and reassuring. What you see is not a perfect record, but a mosaic shaped by memory and expectation. The mind's artistry spares you from the jarring experience of constant interruption, letting you drift through the world in a smooth, continuous stream. And as you settle into the calm of night, you can trust that, even in the small silences between each glance, your mind is always stitching the world whole. Imagine yourself in a crowded market at midday. Faces drift past, each one carrying its own story. But your mind, busy with the sights and sounds, begins to sort people by quick impressions. You notice a gesture or an accent, a style of dress or a familiar pattern, and, before you realize it, your brain has drawn its first conclusion, not about the person, but about a category. Recognition seems to snap into place, just a beat faster than true understanding can follow. This is the stereotype perception lag, a shortcut the mind takes to make sense of a busy world. In ancient villages and bustling cities alike, these shortcuts shaped daily life. A traveler arriving at the gate might be welcomed or watched with suspicion, based not on their words or deeds, but on how closely they fit a known pattern. The mind, hungry for certainty, fills the gap between seeing and knowing with assumption. Yet in the quiet moments, reality lingers just behind the first impression. The neighbor you thought you understood turns out to hold a different history, a deeper kindness, or a secret sorrow. The craftsman with rough hands tells a story that surprises you, reshaping your sense of who he is beyond the surface. Prejudices can speed up recognition, but they also slow true understanding, holding the mind in a pause between the person and the category. As you let your thoughts drift, notice how often this gentle lag shapes what you see and expect. The stereotype perception lag is a quiet force, present in every crowd, every first meeting. In the space between snap judgment and real connection, there is room for the world to grow larger, richer, and more human, one slow, honest moment at a time. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, sharing space with someone whose face you know well. A fleeting tightening around their eyes, a quick lift of the corner of their mouth, gone in a heartbeat, too fast to name. Yet your body reacts before your thoughts catch up. A subtle unease, a rush of warmth, a hint of caution settles in your chest, all guided by a signal too brief for words. This is the micro-expression illusion, the mind's quiet skill at reading the world in glimpses far beneath the surface of awareness. In daily life, these brief flashes of emotion guide your steps more than you realize. At a village gathering, you sense tension long before voices rise, simply from the way someone's hand clutches a cup or the flicker of doubt in a friend's smile. In a crowded market, a split-second glance from a stranger can shift your mood, prompting trust or wariness with no explanation. These signals move like shadows, passing silently from face to face. History is full of moments shaped by these wordless messages. In royal courts, alliances were won or lost on the flicker of an eyebrow or the tightness of a jaw. Messengers brought news not just in their words, but in the shifting color of their cheeks, the tilt of their gaze. In quiet homes, parents sensed a child's secret from a flash of fear. Neighbors recognized truth or deception by a twitch at the mouth. The micro-expression illusion is a gentle reminder that understanding runs deeper than thought. Your body listens to the world's smallest signals, quietly shaping your actions and beliefs before your mind has time to explain. In this hidden language of faces, you are always learning, always reacting, guided by feelings you sense in a single, silent second. Imagine yourself meeting someone new. Their features a gentle puzzle: eyes, mouth, the arch of a brow. At first, the face is just a collection of shapes and shadows, softly unanchored. Then, a name is spoken, simple, familiar, or unusual. And with that single word, something shifts in your mind. The face changes. The name settles onto their features, and from that moment, you begin to see traces of the name in every expression, every smile, every subtle movement. Throughout history, this quiet illusion has colored first impressions. In a medieval village, a baker called Thomas May seems solid and dependable, his name shaping the lines of his jaw and the steadiness in his eyes. A noblewoman named Margaret becomes gentle or stern, her features bending to fit the story whispered by her name. Even in family life, a child's nickname brings warmth to their face, a playfulness that might have been missed had the name been different. The name-face fusion is a subtle magic of language and memory. The mind, always searching for patterns, lets words sculpt what the eyes see. A name you love makes a stranger seem kind. A name that echoes an old rivalry may set your mind searching for flaws. Even the sound and rhythm of a name, soft or sharp, long or short, gently nudge your imagination, reshaping what was once unknown into something familiar or entirely new. This fusion is not a flaw, but a quiet shorthand, a way of finding comfort in the unfamiliar. You remember faces more easily, fill silence with story. Let language settle uncertainty into the gentle order of names and features combined. As you settle into stillness, the rhythm of your breath slow and even. Notice how names linger on the edges of memory, changing the way you see. In the soft blur between word and image, the mind's gentle fiction brings every face a little closer, inviting you to see not just what is there, but what language, quietly and kindly, helps you to find. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, a gentle breeze drifting through an open window. In the hush, you suddenly think you hear your name, a soft whisper, almost a memory, hidden in the rustle of leaves or the distant hum of voices. You pause, listening, but nothing follows. This is the subtle work of the phantom sound effect. Your brain, ever alert for what matters most, quietly inserting familiar words, especially your own name, into the flow of random noise. All through daily life, your mind listens for patterns, always seeking meaning in the sounds around you. A mother hears her child's cry in the clatter of dishes. A traveler pauses at a station, certain someone called out to them, only to realize it was just the echo of footsteps or the shuffle of a crowd. This quiet habit is a comfort, an ancient instinct sharpened by centuries that keeps you connected, ready, and included, even when you are alone. In markets and busy streets, among distant laughter and hurried footsteps, you might catch a fragment of sound and feel sure it was meant for you. In a quiet room, a faint noise can become a gentle summons, pulling you from your thoughts. Your mind, always weaving meaning, fills the silence with the echo of your own story, sometimes offering the sense of presence where there is none. As you settle into rest, notice how the world is full of almost heard words and quiet suggestions, each one a soft reminder of your longing to be known and remembered. The phantom sound effect is your mind's gentle way of making sure you never feel truly forgotten, even in the calmest silence. Imagine yourself walking down a quiet street as the day fades, your footsteps tapping softly on worn stones. In the background, a gentle melody drifts from an open window, something slow and sweet, carrying memories of distant afternoons. The world feels safe, even familiar. Now imagine the same scene, but the music shifts. A tense, uncertain chord, a rhythm that pulses with unease. Suddenly, every shadow deepens, every glance feels suspicious, and the street you trusted becomes mysterious, even threatening. This is the emotional soundtrack illusion, a quiet transformation that happens all around you. Music, with its invisible currents, rewrites the mood of each moment in real time. The laughter of friends, the softness of a spring morning, even the ordinary silence of a kitchen, all are colored and reshaped by whatever notes fill the air. A cheerful tune can lift spirits and smooth worries. A mournful song can cast even sunlight in somber tones. Sometimes, a single chord is enough to turn a smile into a question, a safe room into a place of secrets. In daily life, you are rarely aware of this constant influence. The background music in a shop can make you linger or rush away. A film's swelling score tells you what to feel before you understand why. Your brain, always attuned to subtle cues, absorbs the emotional message and weaves it into your experience, blending sound and sight into a seamless story. As evening settles and the last notes fade into quiet, you might reflect on how easily feelings are shaped, not always by what you see, but by what you hear. The world's soundtrack is always shifting, softly painting your memories with emotion. And in the gentle hush of night, you are free to notice how even silence has its own music, waiting patiently for you to listen. Imagine yourself among a circle of neighbors at dusk, voices overlapping in the gentle haze of evening conversation. Someone mentions a new story, an explanation for a local mystery, or a remedy for sleepless nights. The idea moves through the group like a quiet wind, picked up and repeated, woven into laughter and nods. Soon, it becomes familiar, a piece of shared knowledge that drifts from one mind to the next, not through careful reasoning, but through the simple rhythm of mimicry. Throughout history, beliefs have traveled this way. In crowded taverns, ancient markets, and the soft glow of fire-lit halls, ideas spread not just by debate, but by repetition, by the way people echo what they hear. A rumor becomes truth not because it's tested, but because it's heard so often. The brain, craving belonging, begins to adopt the words and views around it, slowly blending them into memory. What started as someone else's thought becomes your own, so gently you hardly notice. This is the idea contagion twist, a subtle force that shapes belief and behavior, often bypassing logic entirely. In courts and workshops, in family stories passed down by the hearth, the same phrases return again and again, gaining weight with every retelling. Over time, these borrowed convictions settle into the fabric of daily life, mistaken for original insight. As you relax, notice how easily an idea slips from voice to voice, how naturally it becomes part of the background hum. The mind is shaped by echoes. What is repeated feels true. What is shared feels safe. In this gentle, endless cycle, ideas spread not by argument, but by the quiet comfort of familiarity, weaving new beliefs into the private rooms of your own mind. Imagine yourself listening to a voice echoing across a quiet hall. The words are clear, the tone steady, each phrase delivered with unhurried rhythm and confidence. You find yourself nodding along, accepting each statement as truth, even before you've considered the details. This is the mouth truth illusion, a quiet bias wired into your mind that equates confidence with honesty. When someone speaks with certainty, even the unlikely feels real. The impossible sounds familiar. In the rhythms of daily life, this gentle trick is always present. A storyteller at a village fire tells of distant lands, his voice sure and unwavering. The crowd leans closer, doubts slipping away with every practiced cadence. A merchant at the market praises her wares, never pausing, never stumbling, and soon her confidence spreads through the gathering. The words she speaks become facts, simply because she seems so sure. History is filled with voices that shaped reality by the force of conviction. In ancient courts, orators could sway decisions and rewrite memories, not with evidence, but with poise and assurance. Medieval preachers inspired crowds with sermons delivered in calm, measured tones, faith growing in the wake of every emphatic pause. Even today, the world moves to the rhythm of confident voices, each one weaving a fabric of belief that feels as sturdy as truth. Yet beneath this illusion lies a quiet danger. Lies spoken with certainty can slip into memory, growing roots simply because they sounded true. The mind's preference for steady speech makes it easy to follow, hard to question. The mouth truth illusion is a gentle companion, soothing and familiar, but it asks for caution. Sometimes, the loudest voices are not the most honest, and wisdom lies in listening for truth beyond the rhythm and confidence of the words. Imagine yourself walking along a familiar path at dusk, the outlines of trees and buildings softened by the fading light. Your mind, practiced by routine, fills in every turn and shadow before you even arrive. If something new appears, a fresh flower at the roadside, a different stone underfoot, it may pass unnoticed. You aren't seeing only what's in front of you. More often, you see what you've come to expect. The brain, always eager to predict, quietly overrides the unexpected, smoothing away the edges of surprise. Throughout history, this gentle bias has shaped the way people experience their world. In the candlelit shops of medieval towns, a merchant arranges his wares as always, his eyes moving over shelves, but seeing only what should be there. If a trinket is misplaced, it may stay hidden in plain sight. In the hush of a scholar's study, pages turn and the mind drifts on familiar phrases, missing the odd word or changed line. Even at home, the rhythm of daily chores is guided by prediction. Cups and plates returned to their usual places, doors opening as expected, small changes quietly edited out by habit. The prediction override bias is not a flaw, but a quiet efficiency. The mind, flooded with details, makes the world manageable by guessing what comes next. It is a soft protection, saving energy, offering comfort. Yet in doing so, it sometimes hides the very things that could delight or warn us. A child's new drawing taped to the wall might go unseen for days. A friend's subtle change in mood, lost in the blur of routine greetings. As you settle into rest, notice the gentle hum of your own expectations. The mind's predictions are a silent companion, shaping not only what you see, but what you miss. There is comfort in this, and also a reminder. When the world seems unchanging, pause and look again. Surprise is still there, quietly waiting, just beyond the familiar story your mind so kindly tells. Imagine yourself crossing a quiet square in the early morning. A stranger holds the door, or perhaps hurries past without a glance. Instantly, your mind sketches their character, kind, impatient, warm, or distant, based on this one fleeting act. This is the gentle pull of the reconstructed personality mirage, the brain's quiet habit of filling in the spaces, crafting entire personalities from a single moment. Throughout daily life, this mirage shapes how you see others. The neighbor who once smiled is now friendly. The shopkeeper who seemed distracted becomes cold. Even brief encounters gather weight. One moment of generosity or a single careless word, and a person is quietly cast into a role. Your mind is ever eager to understand, gently piecing together the fragments you notice, creating a full story where little is truly known. This habit offers comfort, a way to bring order to the unknown, to feel sure in a world full of strangers. In ancient villages and busy towns, quick judgments once helped keep you safe. Even now, your mind prefers simple labels to uncertain mysteries. Yet the mirage can linger, painting someone with the colors of first impressions, even as time reveals new shades you never expected. As you settle into rest, notice how easily you assign stories to faces you barely know. The reconstructed personality mirage is a soft invention, a gentle reminder that each person you meet holds more within than a single act can show, and that your mind's sketches are only the beginning of a deeper, unfolding story. Imagine yourself arriving in a bustling square just as the morning market begins. Voices mingle in the air, vendors set out their wares, and the smell of fresh bread mixes with the sharper tang of herbs. You notice a stranger at the edge of the crowd, perhaps the tilt of a hat, a hurried gesture, a certain look in their eyes. In a fleeting instant, without knowing why, you form an impression, friendly or cold, trustworthy or uncertain. The moment passes, but something inside you quietly settles into certainty. This is the instant impression lock, a gentle but powerful force in daily life. The mind, seeking order in a world full of moving pieces, makes quick judgments with surprising speed. A first glance, a single word, the echo of a distant memory, all combine to fix your initial feeling in place. And once set, that impression becomes the anchor. Every encounter that follows is filtered through the lens of that first moment. Small details are gathered as evidence, each one reinforcing what you already believe, while signs that disagree slip quietly out of focus. Over the years, this pattern repeats itself in many shapes. A neighbor's laughter, a colleague's silence, a friend's forgotten promise, all are colored by the first judgment you made, often without even noticing. The mind, gentle and stubborn, prefers the comfort of a settled opinion, shaping stories around your original sense until even memory itself falls in line. As the market quiets and evening falls, you may reflect on how quickly your impressions are born and how patiently you defend them. The instant impression lock is a reminder. What feels like steady knowledge is often just the echo of a single moment, held close long after the world has changed. In the hush that follows, you might find room for gentle curiosity, a small space where first impressions can soften and shift, letting new truths quietly unfold. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit room at night, voices drifting from nearby rooms, their words blurred by distance. You can't always make out what is being said, but you hear the shape of feeling in each sound, a gentle reassurance, a warning, a flicker of impatience or care. The tone weaves itself through your senses, coloring your mood before meaning even has a chance to settle. Without realizing it, you respond. Your breath slows, your shoulders tighten, or you smile, moved not by words but by their music. Throughout history, people have learned to listen for more than information. In a crowded medieval hall, the soft murmur of an ally brings comfort, while the sharp edge in a rival's voice sows unease, no matter the words spoken. In family kitchens and silent chapels, intonation is a quiet thread running beneath speech, a signal, felt rather than understood. Sometimes, the very same sentence, whispered gently, soothes. Spoken sharply, it wounds. This is the whispered emotion loop, a subtle circuit where the sound of feeling travels from one person to another, looping back to shape your own mood and interpretation. The mind, always listening for safety or threat, lets tone become a shortcut to meaning. In this loop, a kind phrase can be twisted by worry, or a gentle truth can become harsh if colored by tension. As you drift into stillness, notice how tone lingers, sometimes echoing long after the words are gone. The whispered emotion loop is always at work, quietly rewriting your sense of truth, making the world softer or sharper, warmer or colder, one quiet voice at a time. Imagine yourself rising slowly from a quiet seat, stretching your back and lifting your head. As you stand taller, shoulders open and spine gently aligned, you notice something shift, not just in your body, but in your mind. Confidence, warmth, or calmness spreads, as if posture itself was sending a silent signal inward. This is the posture illusion feedback, a subtle loop where the way you hold yourself quietly shapes the way you feel, without a single word or conscious command. In daily life, this feedback hums softly in the background. A medieval apprentice, weary after hours of work, straightens up to carry a heavy basket and feels a flicker of energy return. At the close of a long day, a tired merchant pauses in the village square, pulling his shoulders back, finding new resolve before walking home. Even at the family table, sitting up with gentle dignity lends an air of peace to the meal, as if posture alone could anchor the evening's mood. History, too, remembers the quiet power of stance. In royal courts, a ruler's presence was measured not only by words, but by the way they stood, shoulders broad, head held high, a posture that encouraged loyalty and trust. Warriors in the field steadied their nerves by adopting the confident stance of those who had come before them. Scribes and scholars, in long hours at their desks, found that an upright posture brought clarity and patience to their work. The posture illusion feedback is a gentle companion, reminding you that the mind and body are always in quiet conversation. How you hold yourself loops back to shape how you feel, calm, certain, or strong. And in this subtle dance, you find new comfort and confidence, one small movement at a time, guided by the silent wisdom of your own body. Imagine yourself in a softly lit room, surrounded by people in half masks, eyes revealed, mouths and cheeks hidden. At first, the unfamiliar is unsettling. The mask interrupts the easy reading of emotion, blurring the line between stranger and friend. But as moments pass, your mind begins its quiet work, filling in the gaps. You imagine a kind mouth beneath friendly eyes, or picture a stern jaw where the gaze is sharp. Even without proof, your mind completes the hidden portrait, weaving guesses into a story you can trust. Throughout history, masks have been more than simple coverings. In the crowded markets of medieval festivals, faces painted or veiled became puzzles for the imagination. Behind every mask, people saw what they expected, or what they most wanted to see. A dancer's laughter felt brighter, a merchant's intent more mysterious. In the grand halls of masquerade balls, voices and gestures gave clues, but it was always the imagination that supplied the missing features, blending reality with quiet invention. The hidden face generator is not a flaw, but a gentle habit of the mind, a way to make sense of what is obscured. In daily life, even a scarf pulled high or a hood drawn low prompts this silent creativity. A neighbor glimpsed in the fog becomes more familiar or more distant, depending on what your mind fills in. This invention brings comfort, letting you build a sense of safety or kinship out of partial clues. But trust built on invention is fragile. The face you've imagined may be softer, harsher, or kinder than the truth beneath. As you settle into stillness, the rhythm of your breath slow and easy, notice the gentle workings of your own imagination. The world is full of faces half seen, stories half told. Your mind completes them, not out of deception, but out of a quiet longing to understand and belong. The hidden face generator offers connection and comfort, even as it reminds you how much of what you see is shaped by what you hope to find. Imagine yourself recalling an old memory as sunlight pours through a window. The scene glows in your mind, laughter in a bright kitchen, golden dust in the air, warmth resting on your shoulders. Somehow, moments bathed in daylight always seem gentler, more joyful. This is the quiet influence of the daylight memory skew. Your memories shift in color and feeling, shaped by the light in which you remember them. All through daily life, your mind softly blends memory and light. A childhood game in the sun feels carefree, each detail sharp and hopeful. Even a simple walk under a blue sky gathers the comfort of brightness. In contrast, memories that unfold in shadow or dim corners often carry a different weight, a quiet regret, a hint of longing, the sense that something was lost in the dusk. The mind attaches meaning to sunlight and to shade, weaving emotion through every remembered scene. In every household, families gather stories around tables, their happiest tales set in the open air or under the glow of morning. Disappointments and old worries, meanwhile, seem to settle into twilight, growing quieter as the light fades. Over time, the rhythm repeats. Joy grows brighter in memory when set in sunlight. Sorrow softens in the shadows, quietly lingering. As you drift toward rest, notice how your own memories are tinted by the gentle play of light. The daylight memory skew reminds you that even the past is colored and shaped, not just by what happened, but by how your mind remembers the world's glow or its hush. Let the soft warmth of remembered sunlight soothe you, while shadows gently carry away the weight of old regrets. Imagine yourself seated at a long wooden table, the soft light of afternoon slanting through open windows. You pick up a cup and feel its familiar weight, the smoothness of the rim against your fingertips. Across the room you hear a quiet murmur, a conversation blurred by distance, a distant kettle's whistle. In these moments, your senses mingle and weave the world together. Yet sometimes, one sense whispers one thing while another insists on its own version of truth. Which do you trust? This is the sensory authority loop, a silent contest, quietly resolved, almost always in favor of your eyes. You see a flickering candle and trust its steady glow even when the air feels chill and unmoving. You watch a friend's lips move and believe you hear their words even if the sound is muffled or missing altogether. Your brain, eager to make sense of contradictions, chooses a favorite. And in most cases, sight is crowned the authority, guiding your beliefs even when other senses raise doubts. In daily life, this gentle hierarchy shapes countless moments. The illusion of a straight stick broken by water, the phantom flavor suggested by a food's color, the trick of a ventriloquist whose voice seems to come from a wooden puppet. These are all quiet reminders that vision rules the mind's court. Even when what you see is false or incomplete, it draws your attention, quietly overruling the subtler signals of touch, taste, smell, or sound. As dusk falls and the room softens into shadow, you may notice the gentle limitations of this trust. Not all that the eyes deliver is true. The sensory authority loop is both a comfort and a trap, guiding you through the world but sometimes leading you astray. In the hush that follows, you might let yourself wonder what other stories your quieter senses would tell, if only given the chance to lead. Imagine yourself standing at a window as dawn breaks, watching the first light move across rooftops. You see the world unfolding in real time, or so it seems. But in truth, there is always a slight delay, a hidden gap between what happens and when you experience it. Your senses gather information, your brain sorts and assembles, and only then does the present moment arrive in your awareness. What you think of as now is already a memory, the real now already gone. Throughout history, this reality lag has quietly shaped experience. In a busy medieval marketplace, a bell rings at the far end of the square. The sound must travel to your ear, your mind must recognize it, and only then do you react. Even the swiftest hand, the quickest glance, trails a few milliseconds behind the world's true pace. The mind, a careful editor, smooths these delays so that life feels seamless, but in each moment, you are trailing just behind the unfolding of reality. For storytellers and scholars alike, the awareness of this lag brings a gentle humility. Every decision, every reaction is made on a past that is already slipping away. The words you hear, the faces you see, the feelings that stir, all are echoes, filtered and arranged by the mind to create the illusion of the present. In this way, your entire life is lived in a soft afterimage, always a little behind the true now. As you rest, notice how the world keeps moving ahead, while your mind follows, quietly stitching moments into a story. The reality lag distortion is subtle but ever present, reminding you that what you call the present is really the recent past, a fleeting shadow, already passing as you become aware of it. Imagine yourself walking a quiet path as the sun begins to lower. You speak a thought aloud in your own language, placing the future ahead of you, the past behind. But in another part of the world, someone else describes time in reverse, the past stretching out in front, fully visible, while the future trails behind unseen. This is the language time warp, the way grammar and structure shape your sense of time itself, gently guiding how you imagine memory, movement, and destiny. In daily life, you rarely notice how deeply language defines the flow of time. A child learning to speak starts to form time into tidy shapes, before and after, soon and long ago. But not every culture draws those shapes the same. In the highlands of South America, some languages describe the past as something you face, visible, known, while the future lies at your back, unknowable and hidden. In others, time flows vertically, tomorrow is down, and yesterday rises above. Even the structure of sentences bends perception. In English, tense dominates thought. I was, I am, I will be. But some languages remove tense entirely, speaking only in the now, as if time itself is a shared context rather than a fixed direction. A merchant using such a language might describe trade not as something that will happen, but something already part of the world's unfolding rhythm. Throughout history, this quiet influence has shaped how people planned, remembered, and dreamed. A sailor trained to speak of winds and tides in cyclical terms might feel time less as a straight line and more as a returning wave. A village elder, whose language places the past ahead, may view memory not as something left behind, but something always present, guiding every step forward. The language time warp is subtle but profound. The way you speak bends how you live, and in each phrase, each verb, your world quietly rearranges itself, past, present, and future flowing in patterns that feel natural but are never truly universal. Imagine yourself listening to a quiet voice, your own, deep inside, whispering a certainty you can't quite explain. No proof, no evidence, just a feeling. It feels precise, almost eerily accurate, like truth unfolding in a single breath. But the mind is not always honest about its own confidence. What feels right may simply be what feels familiar, and familiarity, gently and quietly, often hides our deepest biases. Across history, this sensation has shaped decisions in quiet and powerful ways. In a medieval courtroom, a judge might trust his instincts about a man's guilt just by the way he holds his hands, ignoring facts, leaning instead on something that feels true. In village disputes, gut feelings about land, loyalty, or character often outweighed written agreements. The sense of certainty was enough. But certainty is not always accuracy. The mind, trained on patterns and habits, often mistakes its own reflection for truth. This is the uncanny accuracy deception, the soft illusion that what resonates must be real, that a first impression, a sudden flash of understanding, or a quick judgment carries the weight of wisdom. But beneath that feeling are years of memory, repetition, expectation, shaping not truth, but a comforting shape that seems like it. In daily life, the feeling slips in unnoticed. You might feel sure that someone is being dishonest simply because they remind you of someone else. You may trust a plan, an idea, a decision, not because it's correct, but because it echoes something you've heard before. The gut reacts, but not always wisely. As you rest, feel the quiet hum of your own inner voice, soft and steady. It will speak often. Sometimes it will be right, but let its confidence pass through a filter of gentleness and patience. Not every flash of insight is a truth. Some are just echoes, bias wrapped in certainty, memory masquerading as clarity. In the stillness, let the noise settle. Truth waits there, beneath the feeling, patient and calm. Imagine yourself seated at a long table, voices drifting in and out of the stillness. One speaker leans forward, steady and certain. Their tone is calm, words smooth, posture sure. You don't pause to question. They must know what they're talking about. This is the quiet work of the confidence perception trap, the mind's tendency to confuse self-assurance with truth. All through daily life, this bias plays in the background. The student who answers with certainty is believed, even when wrong. The traveler who gives directions with a steady voice is followed, even if lost. In meetings, in markets, in quiet conversations between strangers, confidence cloaks uncertainty, lending it the shape of competence. Long ago, this shortcut helped people trust leaders who appeared unshaken. Calm in crisis often meant survival. But now, in quieter times, the same instinct misleads. A person may speak with ease, gesture smoothly, look you in the eye, and be completely mistaken. Still, the mind leans toward belief, soothed by the appearance of certainty. Meanwhile, quieter truths often go unheard. Hesitation is mistaken for doubt. A soft-spoken warning is brushed aside. Your brain prefers the illusion of clarity to the discomfort of uncertainty, even when the confident voice is wrong. As you settle into rest, notice how often you've been gently guided by tone, not fact. The confidence perception trap is not unkind, it's simply familiar. But beneath the surface, truth waits patiently, no louder than a whisper, often passed over for the comfort of a louder voice. Imagine yourself standing before a quiet tapestry in an old stone hall. Woven threads freeze a moment in time, horses mid-stride, waves cresting, a figure caught in a forward lean. Nothing moves, and yet you feel it. The gallop, the crash, the rush. Your eyes linger on the lines, your breath slows, and your mind begins to follow a rhythm that isn't there. This is the strange comfort of the implied movement trick. The brain, shaped by motion, trained through survival, is always looking for what comes next. It reads into the curve of a limb, the tilt of a head, the sweep of a painted cloak. Even in perfect stillness, it imagines continuity. A single image becomes a silent film, flickering forward in your imagination. The illusion is so seamless, so convincing, that your body may respond, your pulse quickens, your muscles lean as if to mirror what you believe you're seeing. In daily life, this quiet illusion appears often. A statue with raised arms suggests it will speak. A photograph of dancers seems ready to spin. A bird in a sketch hovers in eternal flight. Though your eyes know it is still, your mind whispers motion. The effect is not deception, but a kind of poetic expectation, the belief that the frozen moment is only the beginning of movement, paused but not finished. As night gathers and the images around you fade into shadow, the implied movement remains. It lingers in memory, in thought, in the gentle tension of what could be. Your mind, ever longing to complete the story, fills in what the eye cannot see. And in that quiet act of imagination, stillness becomes alive, proof that even frozen scenes can move within you, if only for a moment. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a quiet forest, heart steady and mind clear. You notice the sharp outlines of leaves, the delicate pattern of bark, the faint rustle of a distant bird. Each detail is vivid, recorded carefully by your senses. Now imagine a moment later, a sudden surge of fear or joy rushing through you. The same scene shifts, the edges blur, the sounds fade into a hum, and many small details slip away, lost beneath the swell of feeling. This is the detail deletion bias. When emotion rises, memory simplifies. The mind narrows its focus, choosing to preserve the essence of an experience rather than every tiny fragment. In times of calm, your memory holds a rich tapestry. In moments of intensity, it trims the threads, leaving behind broad strokes. This bias shaped countless lives, soldiers in battle recalling the roar and chaos, but forgetting faces and places, or a mother's memory of a child's laughter overshadowed by the ache of worry. Histories and stories, passed down through generations, often reflect this bias. Important moments are remembered for their emotional weight, triumph, sorrow, fear, while many surrounding details quietly fade. The mind protects itself, preserving what feels most vital, even as it loses some of the finer textures. As you drift in thought, notice how your own memories may carry the echo of this bias. The strongest feelings shape what you recall, often at the cost of detail. The detail deletion bias is a gentle editor, smoothing the sharp edges of experience, leaving behind the core of what mattered most, an emotional sketch rather than a perfect portrait. Imagine yourself listening to a story by the fire, one that drifts slowly through details and pauses just before its end. The speaker trails off, perhaps interrupted, perhaps simply finished. But your mind doesn't rest there. Instead, it begins to close the loop, imagining what must have come next. A decision, a consequence, a quiet resolution. This is the reality loop closure, your brain's gentle habit of finishing what was left open, even when the truth remains uncertain. Your need for completeness paints in the silence with familiar patterns. In the rhythm of daily life, this quiet instinct emerges often. A traveler returns to the village without explanation, and people fill in the missing days with their own stories. A letter arrives without a signature, and the mind quickly assigns it a sender. A glance is misread, a silence misunderstood, and yet each becomes part of a story your brain quietly completes, all in the name of comfort and understanding. Throughout history, the desire for closure has shaped entire narratives. Folk tales passed between generations often end with a moral, neatly wrapped, even when real life was far more tangled. In medieval chronicles, gaps in memory or record were smoothed with invention. If a king disappeared, it was said he died nobly. If a battle's end was unclear, a hero was quietly inserted to give meaning. The human mind prefers certainty, even if it must be softly imagined. This loop closure is rarely dramatic. It slips into thought, like a soft thread weaving a loose tapestry, finishing edges that were never truly bound. Yet in doing so, it reveals your leanings, hopes, fears, judgments, all stitched into the endings you create. The reality loop closure is not deception. It is a quiet need for wholeness. And sometimes, the mind finds peace not in knowing the truth, but in gently believing it found the end. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a crowd, the air warm and full of movement. You may not know why people have gathered, or even what they're feeling, but soon, your own emotions begin to shift. Laughter rises and you smile without meaning to. A murmur of unease spreads and your chest tightens. Without speaking, without deciding, you begin to feel what others feel. This is the group emotion filter, the subtle way your mind sinks to the mood of those around you, not through thought, but through quiet absorption. Throughout history, this filter has shaped lives, often invisibly. In a medieval square, as drums beat and voices chant, a single cry of fear can ripple outward like a wave. Panic blooms, not because of reason, but because of resonance. In the warmth of a feast, joy grows louder than it began, each smile mirrored, each cheer amplified. Even in silence, the energy of a shared space sways the heart. A chapel at dawn, filled with bowed heads, invites a stillness that doesn't belong to any one person, but to all. The group emotion filter works beneath awareness. It draws you in, aligns your posture, adjusts your breathing, even changes the rhythm of your thoughts. In a bustling marketplace, irritation spreads like scent through the air. In a quiet gathering, a single soft laugh can lift the mood of the room. Your nervous system, shaped by survival, listens closely to others, because to feel alone was once to be unsafe. But in safety, the filter still runs, still blurs your own feelings with those of the crowd. As you settle into rest, away from voices and movement, notice the emotions that remain. Which are yours? Which were borrowed, absorbed, carried unknowingly from one room to the next? The mind is a tuning fork, humming with the feelings of others, not always as a guide, but as a mirror. In the hush of solitude, you can let the echo fade. What remains is quieter, but more real, a feeling not filtered, not borrowed, but gently your own. Imagine yourself watching a bird glide across the sky, its wings sweeping slowly through the air. The motion feels fluid, continuous, uninterrupted. But what you're actually seeing isn't smooth at all. It's a quiet illusion, stitched together from flickers of stillness, broken frames, and tiny gaps your brain gently fills in. This is the invisible movement blur, the soft trick your mind plays to turn chaos into calm motion. In daily life, this illusion follows you everywhere. A cart rolling down a cobbled street, a leaf falling from a tree, a hand waving from a window, each appears seamless. But between every moment, there are tiny silences, small blanks in time. Your eyes can't track it all. Your brain, working quietly in the background, connects the dots, erases the gaps, and smooths over the imperfections to offer you something coherent. Even in ancient theaters lit by torchlight, dancers moved in ways that seemed graceful and whole, though each step was jagged, each gesture caught in the flicker of flame. The illusion has always been there, helping you make sense of movement, hiding the blur between moments so well you never notice the stitching. As you drift toward sleep, let yourself notice the stillness between things, the spaces between footsteps, the quiet pause between motions. The invisible movement blur reminds you that what feels like flow is often gentle reconstruction, a comforting trick of perception that turns scattered moments into something that feels whole, quiet, and real. Imagine yourself in a candlelit chamber, standing before a tall shelf lined with weathered books. Your eyes drift upward, following the highest spines, instinctively assigning importance to what's furthest from your reach. The books above feel older, wiser, somehow more authoritative, though their titles remain unread. You step back and notice how the ceiling arches command the space, how the chandelier seems to hover with quiet authority. Without meaning to, your mind has drawn a map of power, shaped not by words, but by height. This is the vertical power perception, a silent ancient bias in how you sense dominance and control. Your brain, tuned by evolution and shaped by centuries of structure, often equates higher with stronger, louder with more certain, elevated with more powerful. A figure standing on a balcony seems more commanding than one below. A voice that rises cuts through a room, demanding attention. Biyasana. Even the placement of names on a list changes how they feel. The top few always seem more important. In the gentle rhythm of daily life, this subtle framing goes unnoticed. The tallest buildings define a city's identity. Leaders speak from podiums raised just slightly above the crowd. A painting hung just above eye level gains gravity. Even in silence, height sends signals. It is not proof, but suggestion. Quiet architecture that tells your mind who to follow, what to value, where to look. As night falls and you lie still, the room levels out, ceiling and floor fading into equal darkness. In that hush, the illusion softens. The vertical map of meaning that shaped your day dissolves, and everything feels momentarily level. It's in this quiet flattening that you begin to see, not all power lies above you. Sometimes it waits gently beside you, unnoticed, but just as real. Imagine yourself stepping into a familiar room, the gentle hum of quiet settling around you. The worn rug lies where it always has. The chair beside the window catches the soft afternoon light, and the table holds memories of countless shared moments. But now, picture the furniture moved, chairs swapped places, the rug shifted slightly. Suddenly, the space feels different, almost unfamiliar. Your memories, once clear and steady, now seem slightly out of place, as if the stories tied to this room have shifted too. This is the spatial memory rewrite, how the mind connects space and memory so tightly that changing one can alter the other. In homes and halls through the ages, The arrangement of objects creates a map not just of physical space, but of lived experience. A corner where laughter was shared, a doorway crossed countless times, each spot anchors moments in time. When the map is redrawn, the stories tied to those places sometimes wobble, lost or changed as the familiar landscape shifts beneath them. Travelers returning to villages after years away often find that small changes, fences moved, walls rebuilt, make their memories feel fragile, as if they are recalling a place that no longer exists. The mind depends on space to organize thought. Alter that space, and the narrative sometimes rewrites itself. Even daily routines depend on this map. Where you sit, where you place a book, the path you walk, all woven into the fabric of memory. As you rest, notice how your own memories may ripple with the spaces that surround them. The spatial memory rewrite is a quiet reminder that memory is not just inside the mind, but lives between us and the world. A living map shaped by place, forever shifting with the movement of things around us. Imagine yourself holding a small handmade cup. The glaze is chipped, the rim slightly uneven, yet it feels valuable, not because of its perfection, but because it's yours. You carried it home, cleaned it, used it, and now it holds more than water. It holds memory. This is the ownership perception bias, the quiet shift that happens when something becomes yours. From the moment of possession, its worth begins to grow, not in the object itself, but in your eyes. In daily life, this silent bias plays out again and again. A farmer values his land not just for what it yields, but because his footsteps shaped its paths. A weaver treasures her first loom, though it's slower and worn, because her hands learned there. Even a child clutches a broken toy with fierce loyalty, not because it works, but because it belongs. Ownership wraps things in invisible meaning, raising their importance beyond their use or beauty. Across centuries, this illusion has gently shaped human behavior. Medieval merchants priced their own goods higher than others, even when identical. A nobleman defending inherited land saw not just soil, but legacy. Even scribes, copying the same text as others, grew attached to their version, valuing their own script as truer, their ink as wiser. Possession created a kind of enchantment, blurring the lines between value and attachment. The same applies to ideas. Once you believe something, it becomes yours. Letting it go feels like loss, even when evidence knocks gently at the door. The ownership perception bias is a soft distortion, comforting and familiar. It reminds you that worth is often a mirror, reflecting not what something is, but what it means to the one who holds it. And in that meaning, even the plainest thing begins to shine. Imagine yourself walking through a stone courtyard just before sunrise. A cold breeze brushes your face, and for a moment, everything slows. The shift of light on cobblestones, the sound of distant footsteps, the soft creak of a door opening somewhere behind you. That single moment stretches. You feel the texture of time changing. What lasts only seconds seems to bloom wide, full of layers. Other times, the opposite happens. You look up and hours have slipped past unnoticed, as if your memory skipped a beat. This is the compressed experience glitch. Your mind does not measure time in fixed units, but in intensity. Moments of awe, fear, or wonder seem to defy the rhythm of the clock. A single heartbeat can hold a lifetime of detail. In a medieval battlefield, a soldier might recall the clash of swords in slow motion, the shimmer of metal, the breath between movements. Yet a week spent in quiet repetition might blur to nothing, compressed into a single faded impression of routine. This phenomenon shaped lives long before anyone gave it a name. In the hush of a monastery, monks lost hours to the deep rhythm of prayer, while one sudden vision, a candle flickering just so, a whispered word, might feel eternal. In villages, midwives and mothers spoke of moments during birth that felt suspended outside of time, while the long days that followed blurred into soft, indistinct patterns. Your brain records what matters: surprise, beauty, pain. These stretch time because they demand attention. Repetition shrinks it because the mind, gently overwhelmed by sameness, begins to skim. As you settle into rest now, let that truth soothe you. Not every moment is weighted equally. Some memories grow large, others drift, small and almost invisible. In the end, time is not only passed, but shaped by what you feel, what you notice, and what your mind, quietly and kindly, chooses to hold. Imagine yourself sitting alone in a quiet room, repeating a simple word aloud. It begins as something familiar: apple, window, river, a sound tied tightly to meaning. But as you whisper it again, and again, and again, something strange begins to happen. The word starts to unravel. It loses shape. The syllables stretch and distort. Soon, it sounds foreign, like a sound detached from its purpose. This is semantic saturation, the whispering word perception, your brain quietly releasing its grip on meaning when repetition grows too steady. In daily life, words carry weight. They guide, explain, comfort. But this small illusion reminds you that meaning is not stored in the word itself. It lives in the space between memory and sound. Repeat a word too many times and the connection slips. The word becomes texture instead of thought, familiar but empty. A scholar in candlelight might copy a word over and over until it feels senseless. A child chanting a rhyme might fall into soft laughter when the words lose shape. This gentle detachment has echoed through time, revealing how thin the thread is between language and understanding. As you drift toward sleep, let yourself feel how fragile meaning can be. Language, so constant in your waking hours, is a structure held together by rhythm and memory. The whispering word perception is your mind's soft reminder. Even words spoken too often can dissolve into sound, leaving only the quiet between syllables and a peaceful space where thought once lived. Imagine yourself seated at a long table in a quiet hall, surrounded by the low murmur of familiar voices. Candles flicker gently, casting steady light on worn plates and folded linen. You pass bread, share a quiet laugh, nod at a story that everyone knows. The room feels anchored, solid, shared, real. But beneath the comfort of these small routines is something softer, more fragile. What holds this world together is not just the stone walls or the weight of objects. It is agreement. This is the collective reality merge, a quiet pact formed not with words, but with repetition and belief. You see the same signs, hear the same stories, share the same language for time, truth, and meaning. Over and over, reality is confirmed not by direct perception, but by the gentle echo of those around you. If enough people agree a day is lucky, a gesture is rude, a stone is sacred, then it becomes so. Not because the universe declared it, but because a group of minds quietly decided to pretend it had. In daily life, this shared illusion shapes everything: maps and borders, clocks and currencies, customs and ceremonies, all carried forward by mutual assent. You rarely notice the pretending because it is done so earnestly. Everyone plays along, and in doing so, makes it feel permanent. As the candles burn low and silence returns to the hall, you might sense how delicate this shared reality truly is. It is not fixed, but held gently in place by attention and trust. And in the quiet moments, when the world seems to shimmer just slightly out of sync, you remember, what you call real is often not what is, but what we've all agreed not to question. A shared dream, spoken softly enough to seem like truth. Imagine yourself walking through a dense forest, the canopy above casting shifting shadows on the path. You pause, uncertain of how far you've come, or how far remains. Yet despite the growing quiet and the unfamiliar shapes around you, your mind assures you, you must be close. That feeling of nearing your goal is a quiet optimism, built into your brain's design, even when the truth is otherwise. This is the navigation confidence lie. Across centuries, Travelers and wanderers have felt it, a subtle overestimation of proximity that nudges them forward even when lost. In medieval towns, pilgrims setting out on long journeys carried this built-in hope. When the road twisted unexpectedly or landmarks vanished, their minds clung to the belief that the destination was just around the corner, even as hours slipped away. This optimistic misjudgment helps protect against despair. The brain, wary of discouragement, paints a brighter picture of progress. Yet it also means that distance and direction can be misread, causing detours and delays. Explorers and merchants alike have found themselves walking farther than expected, led by a confidence that doesn't always match the map. As you breathe quietly, notice how this gentle optimism plays in your own mind. The navigation confidence lie is a soft guide, encouraging you forward through uncertainty, whispering that the end is near, even when the journey stretches on. It reminds us that sometimes the heart believes before the path reveals its truth, carrying us onward through the fog of doubt and distance. Imagine yourself reaching for a favorite mug on a quiet morning. You've used it for years, its weight familiar, the chipped edge unnoticed. Somehow, the drink tastes better from this mug, the day begins more gently. But it isn't the mug, not really. It's what you've given it. This is the object-emotion merge, a quiet illusion where your feelings bleed into the world around you, turning simple things into emotional companions. In daily life, this merging happens often, unnoticed. A traveler carries a worn scarf, not for warmth, but for the memories sewn into it. A baker chooses one wooden spoon over another, believing it stirs with more care. Children line up stones and buttons with tender purpose, each object holding a personality, a mood. Over time, emotion and object fuse. The thing is no longer just a thing, it becomes part of the story you tell yourself. History is filled with such quiet attachments. Warriors carried talismans into battle, their protection more emotional than physical. Medieval pilgrims clutched tokens from distant shrines, the weight in their hand steadying the soul. Even scribes favored certain quills, certain desks, believing their words flowed better through familiar tools. These objects became extensions of the inner world, silent, comforting witnesses to human feeling. You might not realize it, but this quiet enchantment surrounds you. The sweater you wear on hard days, the book with a worn corner you never lend, the stone you found and still keep in a drawer, all carry emotion not because of what they are, but because of what you've poured into them. The object-emotion merge is a gentle distortion, turning the world warm and familiar. And in doing so, it makes reality just a little softer to hold. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet village path, footsteps falling in time with a distant drum beat. You didn't mean to match it, it just happened. The rhythm wrapped around you, gently shaping the pace of your movement, your breathing, even your thoughts. This is the rhythm illusion response. It's the quiet way patterns in sound, especially rhythm, guide your perception of time, speed, and focus without asking for permission. Throughout history, rhythm has shaped the rhythm of life itself. In fields at harvest, workers moved in unison to the steady beat of a shared song. In candlelit kitchens, the rhythm of chopping, stirring, and grinding became almost musical. And in places of worship, chants and hymns slowed the breath and quieted the heart, creating the sensation of sacred time, longer, slower, softer than the ticking of a clock. Your brain listens for rhythm constantly. A fast beat sharpens attention, tricks the mind into feeling urgency. That's why marching soldiers keep in time. Why a blacksmith's hammer swings to a beat. Why the tempo of a song can make a long run feel shorter, or a slow moment feel stretched. Even in quiet, subtle pulses, like the ticking of a clock or the drip of water, rhythm gives the mind something to follow. Without it, time feels uncertain. With it, time becomes shaped, sculpted, carried. Modern life still plays with this illusion. Advertisements use quick cuts and fast beats to stir energy. Stores choose slow, steady music to make you linger. Even your heartbeat, in a moment of stress or calm, begins to sync with the tempo around you. The illusion is not deception, it's design. The body responds because rhythm has always meant something: danger, safety, work, or rest. As you settle into stillness, listen for the quieter rhythms now: the breath in your chest, the faint pulse in your fingers, the gentle rhythm of your own thoughts arriving and fading. These, too, shape your experience of time. In the hush of rest, they remind you, rhythm is not just heard, it is lived, and every tempo carries its own illusion of speed, space, and presence. Imagine yourself stepping into an old room, walls lined with quiet memories, light falling in a way that feels strangely distant. You pause, and for a moment, something shifts. You feel different, not entirely changed, but altered, less certain of who you are, more aware of who you were. This is the gentle pull of the identity fog drift, the way your sense of self flickers and bends, shaped by spaces, moods, and subtle surroundings. Throughout your day, you wear yourself differently. In one room, you speak freely, your words loose and confident. In another, you grow quiet, more watchful, more hesitant. With certain people, you become brighter. With others, smaller. These shifts are not false. They are fragments of you, drawn forward or softened by where you stand and who stands with you. Even centuries ago, this quiet drift shaped daily life. A farmer kneeling in the chapel became devout and still. That same man, laughing in the fields with friends, was louder, freer. A woman at home might speak with ease, yet fall silent in the presence of authority. Their identities never vanished. They simply moved, changed shape, gently answering the room. As you settle into rest, notice how your own sense of self rises and recedes like mist across a quiet lake. The identity fog drift is not confusion. It is a soft reminder that you are not one fixed person, but many layers, revealed by light, space, and time. Each room you enter shapes you slightly, and in sleep, when no walls remain, perhaps you meet the version of yourself that simply drifts between them all. Imagine yourself in a dim room lit only by the glow of a screen. The world beyond the window is still, yet your mind is crowded, filled with names, faces, opinions, fragments of voices that never quite arrive. A profile picture smiles without moving, a message appears without tone, and slowly, a full person forms in your imagination. But what you're reacting to is not them. It's the echo of them, the shadow you've built from pixels and suggestion. This is the avatar distortion effect, a quiet illusion born from absence. Online, your mind fills in the missing parts: tone of voice, rhythm of breath, presence of gaze. A kind reply feels warmer than it is. A delayed response feels colder. You build characters from usernames and silence, assigning personality to punctuation, reading emotions into images that haven't changed in years. These digital sketches become stand-ins for real people, but they are shaped more by your inner world than theirs. In daily life, you lean on subtle signals: eye contact, posture, pauses in speech. These are missing online, replaced by carefully cropped photos and lines of curated text. You react not to presence, but to performance. The warmth you feel, the irritation, the trust, or suspicion, it's not directed at the person themselves, but at the story your mind wrote in their place. As the screen dims and you return to the quiet room, the avatars linger, unfinished, half true, partly you. They fade slowly, leaving behind a hum of unresolved emotion. In the hush of night, you may realize how often your connections pass through layers of distortion, soft veils of projection. And in that stillness, you might wonder who you've really spoken to, and how many of them are speaking to a version of you that never quite existed. Imagine yourself sitting quietly by a window on a soft spring afternoon. The world outside hums with the gentle rustle of leaves and the faint chirp of birds. For some, these sounds might also shimmer with color, a golden note here, a deep blue whisper there. This blending of senses is known as synesthesia, where hearing colors or tasting sounds is a vivid experience. But even if you don't see music or hear hues, your senses still quietly mingle in subtle ways. Perhaps you notice how a gray, rainy day tastes heavy and cool, like soft stone in your mouth. Or how a sudden burst of joy feels warm and bright, like sunlight on your skin. Moods leak into senses, weaving a delicate tapestry where feelings blend with colors, textures, and even flavors. The world is not just seen or heard, but felt in layers that overlap and flow into one another. Throughout history, poets and painters have tried to capture this elusive flow, the scent of a memory, the sound of a sunset. Even ancient healers spoke of balancing the senses to soothe the soul, aware that perception is rarely divided cleanly. The synesthetic leak reminds us that experience is richer and more fluid than simple facts suggest. As you let your mind drift, notice how your own senses intertwine. The sky's blue may carry a note of calm. A warm breeze might taste faintly of summer's promise. In this quiet blending, the world becomes a living canvas, painted not just with sight and sound, but with the subtle fusion of all you feel and sense, a gentle leak where perception flows beyond its usual borders. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet landscape just before dusk. The wind shifts a branch, and it forms a shape that seems too perfect to be chance. You pause, feel something stir, a memory, an idea, perhaps a sign. Your mind begins to weave meaning. This is the meaning mirage effect, the gentle illusion where your brain, ever hungry for understanding, creates significance where none may exist, not to deceive, but to soothe, to organize, to comfort. In daily life, this quiet search never stops. A dropped coin is seen as luck. A repeated number feels like a message. A forgotten song, playing at the right moment, seems to speak directly to you. These connections feel rich with purpose, though they may be random. The brain doesn't wait for meaning to arrive from the outside. It builds it piece by piece out of coincidence, emotion, and memory. Across time, this need has shaped belief, ritual, and story. A farmer in an ancient village sees a bird fly west and reads it as a sign of a good harvest. A noble hears thunder on the day of a birth and proclaims destiny. Even scribes, recording history, often wove events into patterns, moments bound by purpose, even when no such thread existed. Meaning gave form to the unknown, painting chaos with gentle order. But the mirage, like all illusions, is not a trick. It's a reflection of how deeply we long for coherence. When something happens, the brain asks not just what, but why. And when no answer is given, it makes one softly, using fragments from feeling and imagination. The meaning mirage effect is a quiet companion to consciousness. It turns randomness into story, noise into signal, moments into myths. And while not all meaning may be true, it often feels true enough to hold. In that space, you find comfort, not in certainty, but in the shape your mind gives to the world. Imagine yourself waking slowly in a quiet room. The light is soft, the walls are familiar, but before your eyes even open, your mind has already begun to build the world. You expect the ceiling above, the floor beneath, the weight of your own body. And so, without thinking, you find those things exactly where you imagined them. This is the reality construction loop, the gentle, unnoticed process by which your beliefs, memories, and expectations don't just describe the world, they begin to shape it. Throughout history, people have trusted their senses to deliver truth, but perception isn't passive. It's a collaboration between the mind and the moment. In a medieval village, a farmer scanning the sky for signs of rain doesn't see just clouds. He sees patterns shaped by years of memory and need. A healer interpreting a patient's pulse listens not only with her ears, but with her expectations of what that rhythm should mean. Even in prayer, when silence fills the room, the mind listens for a presence it already believes is there, and often it finds one. The loop is constant. What you believe guides what you notice. What you notice reinforces what you believe. You tune out what doesn't fit and amplify what does. A sound you expect becomes clearer. A shadow you fear grows sharper. The world around you becomes an echo of the world within. The rhythm of daily life is full of these loops, small, silent feedback systems between mind and moment. But this isn't a flaw. It's how you navigate complexity. You don't have time to see everything as it is, so your brain edits, constructs, simplifies, and sometimes, gently, it leans into what it hopes is true. As you settle into rest now, notice the world your mind is softly shaping. This room, this stillness, this breath. The reality you inhabit is not only out there, it is also in here, built moment by moment, shaped by attention, memory, and quiet belief. In that space between sensing and knowing, reality is not fixed. It's something you help create.